Chapter 498. The spirit cultivators who came here were stunned when they saw the barren ground. Actually, they also felt a terrifying flame aura on the way here, but because it was far away, they thought that a fire-type treasure had appeared. But now, it didn't seem like the birth of a treasure, but more like the birth of a monster. Especially the few spirit aperture realm experts, their faces were gloomy because they knew that if they were to face this kind of flame, they would definitely die. What is this Wugu mountain hiding? Why do I feel so many different auras in the air? A spirit cultivator's face was full of doubt. Yeah, it's too strange. Look at the ground, it doesn't seem like it was created by some kind of spirit technique, but it's suddenly disappeared. What kind of cultivation base is needed to be able to do this? I'm afraid it's only a great expert at the Unity of Heaven realm. Everyone's imagination ran wild, but no one could say anything. At this time, Ling Shiqi and Nine Leave had already run dozens of miles away. Along the way, Ling Shiqi also told Nine Leave about the characteristics of the scarlet gold earth dragon flame. After Nine Leave found out, she was immediately unhappy. The heaven and earth variant that she had been thinking about for a long time was actually able to restrain her existence, which made it hard for her to accept. She even muttered, "Brat, you're really lucky. You even dared to forcefully take the scarlet gold earth dragon flame. You're lucky that it didn't burn you to death. This thing is yours." "Senior, then do you know the method to refine the scarlet gold earth dragon flame?" Ling Shiqi asked. Nine Leave thought for a moment and said, "I've never seen the scarlet gold earth dragon flame before, so of course I don't know the method to refine it. But I guess it's best to use ice-type materials. Formations, pills, and environments have to be prepared. Speaking of which, the demonic Miasma mountain range once had an ice-type heaven and earth variant called zero-bound ice. Later on, it was taken away by a spirit cultivator. If you can find someone who can refine zero-bound ice to help you, it will be much easier." Zero-freeze ice. Ling Shiqi muttered these 4 words. Heaven and earth variants were extremely rare, and the demon Miasma mountain range was a place that connected the Thunderblaze Imperial Dynasty and the Falling Star Imperial Dynasty at the same time. However, Nine Leave had indeed provided him with an idea. This time, when he returned to the Blood Garment Pavilion, he could also prepare some ice-type materials. At the same time, he could also borrow the Blood Garment Pavilion's vast intelligence network to investigate people who possessed ice-type variants. After that, the man and the demon rushed to the Blood Cloak Pavilion's main pavilion in Mukon County at full speed. Ling Shiqi immediately used his fate skill. Since he had condensed a primordial spirit, his mental strength had skyrocketed, and the teleportation distance of fate had reached an exaggerated range of 1,000 miles. Coupled with his constant traveling, it only took him 5 days to reach the vicinity of the Blood Garment Pavilion. At this moment, Ling Shiqi stopped and looked at Nine Leave, who was still following him. "What are you looking at?" Nine Leave glared at him. "Cough." Ling Shiqi said helplessly, "Senior Nine Leave, I'm about to enter the Blood Garment Pavilion. Not to mention the Sky Origin realm experts, there are also many Unity of Heaven realm experts. I'm afraid you'll be discovered." "You mean to say that I'm in the way?" Nine Leave's tone became a little gloomy. Ling Shiqi immediately broke out in a cold sweat. Although Nine Leave was only a rank 5 monster, her true strength was so great that even an ordinary Unity of Heaven realm expert was not her opponent. Junior definitely did not mean that. "I'm just worried about Senior's safety." "Humph." Nine Leave snorted. Immediately, a purple light flashed around her body, and then a graceful figure appeared. It was a seductive woman with a beauty that could topple cities. Her every movement was filled with a charming aura. Her light purple eyes and the purple lines at the corners of her eyes added a sense of mystery to her. She was not wearing a robe, but a purple and black light armor. The style of the light armor was somewhat similar to her original body. The key was that the light armor did not cover her whole body. Her limbs and waist were exposed, which made Ling Shiqi a little dizzy. He secretly mobilized his spiritual power and pulled his mind back. He said in surprise, "Senior, you can already transform?" Nine-Leaf gently twisted her waist and gradually approached. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly. You can say that. But I can't completely transform into a human form. I still have some characteristics of my original body, so I transformed it into armor. How is it? Not bad, right? Smelling the fragrance coming toward him, Ling Shiqi's heart inevitably beat faster. He laughed dryly and changed the topic. Yes, but senior, why did you suddenly transform into a human form? Of course it's to follow you to the Blood Garment Pavilion. Nine-Leaf said matter-of-factly, I've been interested in this famous assassin force for a long time. Ling Shiqi couldn't help but facepalm. Senior Nine-Leaf, this is not very convenient. What's not convenient about it? With your ability and identity, can't you bring someone in? Nine-Leaf patted Ling Shiqi's shoulder. Don't worry, my cultivation has recovered quite well. As long as those Heaven Origin Realm cultivators don't appear, no one will be able to see my true body. Hearing this, Ling Shiqi secretly let out a sigh of relief. However, it was indeed not appropriate for him to bring a beauty like Nine-Leaf in. Thus, he took out a set of black robes and a black mask, and said, Senior, the Blood Garment Pavilion has its own rules, and all disciples have to wear masks. I only have a black mask here. Senior, please feel wronged and disguise yourself as a black-robed assassin. Nine-Leaf shrugged indifferently. As long as she could enter the Blood Garment Pavilion, she didn't care about anything else. Nine-Leaf put on the black robe and mask. Even her cultivation was suppressed to the spirit transformation realm. In the blink of an eye, she had become a very ordinary black-robed assassin. However, Ling Shiqi was still a bit worried because Nine-Leaf's ability to cause trouble was too strong. If she was allowed to wander around the Blood Garment Pavilion, who knew what kind of trouble she would cause? That was why Ling Shiqi planned to bring Nine-Leaf to the Formless Palace and quickly finish a few things before leaving. Then, he put on his blood-red robe and mask and walked into the Blood Cloak Pavilion. The Blood Garment Pavilion had always been heavily guarded. After checking Ling Shiqi's token, the guard insisted on checking Nine-Leaf's identity token. Ling Shiqi took out his silver-patterned blood kill token and used his authority to forcibly bring Nine-Leaf in. After entering the Blood Garment Pavilion, Nine-Leaf immediately began to look around. She was slightly dissatisfied and said, the Blood Garment Pavilion doesn't have a dark and bloody feeling. It's really lacking. The corner of Ling Shiqi's eyes under the mask twitched. He didn't answer and directly brought Nine-Leaf to the Formless Palace. Chapter 499. Ling Shiqi stood in front of the Formless Palace that he hadn't seen in a long time. His heart was filled with mixed feelings. Ever since he left Blood Mist Island, he had only come to Formless Palace 3 or 4 times. There was a time when he almost forgot that he was a disciple of Blood Cloth Pavilion. The 2 assassins at the entrance of Formless Palace didn't recognize Ling Shiqi, but they recognized his mask and silver-patterned blood robe. They immediately knelt down and said, Greetings, Master Ling. Is Master here? Ling Shiqi asked. Master isn't in the palace. Not here? Ling Shiqi frowned. Do you know where Master went? The 2 shook their heads. Ling Shiqi felt that this was a bit troublesome. Formless was his direct superior in Project Blood Seed. If Formless wasn't here, who should he go find? The only ones who knew were probably the 5 Sky Origin Realm cultivators of Blood Cloth Pavilion. Then the one he should go find the most should be Pavilion Master Hateful Blade. But from what he knew, Hateful Blade was a cultivation maniac. It was very likely that he was in seclusion. He asked again, is the Pavilion Master in seclusion? The Pavilion Master is indeed in seclusion. Right now, the Vice Pavilion Master is in charge of the sect. Understood. Ling Shiqi then brought Nine-Leaf into Formless Palace. He was going to let her stay here for a while, but they didn't walk for long before they ran into a woman. It was Ling Shiqi's senior sister, Sulwan. He remembered that Sulwan was the one who had brought him into the sect, but the 2 hadn't seen each other since then. After a few years, Sulwan's cultivation had reached the late stage of the Spirit Aperture realm. Her cultivation speed was astonishing. Or rather, as formless disciple, this was how it should be. Sulwan also didn't expect to meet Ling Shiqi. She had almost forgotten that she had this junior brother. Senior sister Sulwan, long time no see. Ling Shiqi greeted her symbolically. But Sulwan's gaze was fixed on Nine Leaf behind Ling Shiqi. Even though Nine Leaf was wearing a black robe, it was obvious that she was a woman. Who is she? Unrelated people are not allowed to enter Nanfei's palace as they please, said Sulwan coldly. Ling Shiqi's heart suddenly quivered. Who dared to speak to Nine Leaf like this? He was truly afraid that Nine Leaf would slap Sulwan to death. He secretly glanced at Nine Leaf behind and discovered that Nine Leaf was unmoved, as though he had not heard anything. Ling Shiqi hurriedly said, "My subordinate, he's an errand runner." Sulwan didn't pursue the matter. Instead, she changed the topic. Your cultivation speed is quite fast. As expected of someone chosen by Master. When they first met, Ling Shiqi was only at the middle stage of the spirit transformation realm. The gap between him and Sulwan was simply too great. At this moment, there was only a difference of 1 or 2 small realms between them. It could be seen that Ling Shiqi was indeed catching up. However, Ling Shiqi didn't detect any jealousy or fear in Sulwan's voice. He cupped his hands and said, "Senior sister overpraises me. If you're looking for Master, then you've come at the wrong time. He went to the Western Wasteland province a while ago and hasn't returned." He still hasn't returned? Ling Shiqi thought to himself. He knew that Nanfei had gone to the Western Wasteland province to send a group of assassins, but it had already been several months. He should have returned a long time ago. However, Ling Shiqi couldn't guess the thoughts of an existence at Nanfei's level, so he didn't think too much about it. "Thank you for telling me, senior sister." Sulwan waved her hand indifferently and left. Ling Shiqi rubbed his chin. This senior sister Sulwan was still so straightforward. Afterwards, he and Nine Leaf arrived at his small courtyard. Someone had been taking care of this place for a long time, but the person in charge had changed again. Ling Shiqi settled Nine Leaf down here and prepared to go find the Vice Pavilion Master. Before leaving, he earnestly said, "Senior Nine Leaf, I'll go see the Vice Pavilion Master, Black Frost Ghost. He's a heaven origin expert. Perhaps he'll be able to sense Senior's existence dash," but before he could finish speaking, Nine Leaf interrupted him. "I know. You're just worried that I'll run off. I won't cause any trouble for you." Ling Shiqi was silent for a moment before turning to leave. However, he was still a bit worried, so he used the Netherworld Ghost Steps to walk toward the Bloodkill Hall. At the entrance of the Bloodkill Hall, Ling Shiqi handed over the silver-marked Bloodkill token and explained his reason for coming. Not long after, he was led into the Bloodkill Hall. The Bloodkill Hall was very spacious. Ling Shiqi could clearly hear his own footsteps as he walked inside. He looked at the throne at the very back, but there was no one there. Tap, tap, at this moment, 2 sets of footsteps rang out. Ling Shiqi turned to look and saw 2 familiar faces. One of them was Hengming. The last time they had met was during the gambling match with the 6 Unity Spirit region. Hengming's cultivation base was now at the Spirit Aperture realm. However, his spirit energy aura was still not very stable. It seemed he had only broken through a few days ago. In truth, Hengming's cultivation talent was a bit inferior to Delta Origi and Yushu's. For him to be able to reach the Spirit Aperture realm right after Delta Origi, he had probably suffered quite a bit. Hengming had always been a man of few words. If he could speak less, he definitely wouldn't speak more. When he saw Ling Shiqi, he only nodded in greeting. Ling Shiqi also responded. Since Hengming had already broken through to the Spirit Aperture realm, he should be participating in the Blood Seed project. He just didn't know which faction the Blood Garment Pavilion would place him in. As for the other person, it was out of Ling Shiqi's expectations. That person was Bing Shang. Ling Shiqi hadn't seen Bing Shang since the collapse of the illusory spirit's secret realm. What had he experienced after that? Why was he at the Bloodkill Hall now? Bing Shang's temper wasn't much better than Hengming's. He simply said, "Looks like there's no need for our battle." Bing Shang's cultivation base was still at the late stage of the Spirit Pulse realm. His cultivation speed was quite fast, but compared to Ling Shiqi, there was still a big difference. It could be said that there was no need for them to compete. Senior brother's control of cold qi is inferior to mine. If there's time, I'd like to ask senior brother for advice. Ling Shiqi also said politely. Bing Shang shook his head and said, "I don't dare to be called senior brother. Just call me junior brother." In the Falling Star continent, strength was respected. This concept was deeply ingrained in every spirit cultivator's heart. In the past, Bing Shang's cultivation base was higher than Ling Shiqi's, so it was natural for him to call him senior brother. But now that their cultivation bases were reversed, they had to change the way they addressed each other. Hengming said, "This is my junior brother." Ling Shiqi immediately felt that something was wrong. He and Bing Shang were both disciples of the Blood Garment Pavilion. They called each other senior brother, but they didn't have the same master's disciple. But from Hengming's words, it seemed that Bing Shang really was Hengming's junior brother. That meant Bing Shang had already been taken in by Ink Frost Ghost Man. That's right. Bing Shang is a disciple that our pavilion recently accepted. At this moment, a frosty voice suddenly rang out. Ling Shiqi looked up. At some unknown time, a person had appeared on the main seat of the Blood Kill Hall. It was the Vice Pavilion Master of the Blood Garment Pavilion, Ink Frost Ghost Man. Chapter 500. Greetings, Vice Pavilion Master. Greetings, Master. Ling Shiqi and the other two bowed at the same time. The three of you are all outstanding disciples of the Blood Garment Pavilion, and you know each other. I'll let you see. Ink Frost then turned to Bing Shang and Hengming. The two of you have also seen Ling Shiqi's cultivation base. You should know the difference between you and him. You have to work harder in the future. We will follow Master's teachings. You can leave for now. Disciple will take his leave. The two of them left the Blood Kill Hall together. Ink Frost examined Ling Shiqi and said, "I heard you went to participate in Donglin County's elite meeting. It seems it's already over." The elite meeting was a grand meeting of the Thunderflame dynasty. It was extremely secretive, and most people had never heard of it. Even the Blood Garment Pavilion's intelligence network hadn't been able to infiltrate it, so Ink Frost didn't know what the result was. Ling Shiqi cupped his fists and said, "Disciple has not failed his mission and obtained the champion of the elite meeting. An exception has been made for me to enter the Dark Lightning Guard's headquarters. Delta Origi has also entered the Discipline Department's headquarters." Swish. The Ink Frost Ghost Man immediately stood up, his eyes revealing an undisguised look of surprise. "Is that so?" Disciple wouldn't dare lie to Vice Pavilion Master. "Huh, good, very good." Ink Frost arrived in front of Ling Shiqi and placed his hands on his shoulders. As expected of Blood Mist Island's strongest disciple. "We really didn't misjudge you. Tell me what reward you want. As long as it's within my authority, I'll definitely satisfy it." Ling Shiqi had come for the Blood Garment Pavilion's reward. He was delighted when he heard the Ink Frost Ghoul's firm reply. Furthermore, Ink Frost had been in charge of the Blood Garment Pavilion for many years. What authority did he have? It could be said that as long as the Blood Garment Pavilion could take out something, he would agree. Then Disciple won't be courteous. Go ahead. The Ink Frost Ghostly Man was very generous. First of all, Disciple will more or less face some troubles after going to the Imperial capital. Moreover, it will be very difficult to contact the sect in time in the Imperial capital, so Disciple needs some help. Ling Shiqi explained his difficulties. Mo Shuang Ghostly Man waved his hand without any hesitation. Of course. Don't worry about this. I'll make the necessary arrangements. Ling Shiqi continued, Vice Pavilion Master, as you know, this disciple has practiced a body-refining cultivation method, but that cultivation method is of a lower level and is no longer suitable for me. I hope that Vice Pavilion Master can give me a higher level body refining cultivation method. The body refining cultivation method that he practiced was the incomplete 9 Nether Mageweth diagram that he obtained from the demon spirit in Boiwanu's tomb a long time ago. He had reached the end of the 9 Nether Mageweth diagram after he came to the Western Wilderness Prefecture. However, high-level body refining techniques were too precious. Ling Shiqi had been running around and didn't have time to search for them. This caused his body's strength to increase very slowly. Compared to his cultivation, it felt like it was dragging him down. Taking advantage of this opportunity, he naturally wanted to get a high-level body refining technique. He believed that with the Blood Garment Pavilion's foundation, they would definitely have it. High-level body refining techniques. I remember that the Blood Book Palace has more than one. Take this token. You can go and pick one later. Mo Shuang Ghostly Man took out a token and handed it to Ling Shiqi. Ling Shiqi looked at Mo Shuang Ghostly Man's indifference. It seemed that the Blood Garment Pavilion didn't lack high-level body refining techniques at all. He regretted that he didn't ask for a few more. Unfortunately, since he had already said it, he couldn't go back on his words. He could only swallow his loss. He said, lastly, Disciple wants some ice array formations, materials, and the like. Oh. You want to cultivate cold chi? If so, I can help you. Mo Shuang Ghostly Man was best at 2 aspects. One was ghosts, and the other was cold chi. Ling Shiqi shook his head and said, No, Disciple plans to use ice attribute materials to refine a fire attribute variant. A fire attribute variant? Mo Shuang Ghostly Man's voice suddenly rose a few notches. You have a fire attribute variant? That's right. Disciple obtained the pure gold earth dragon flame by chance some time ago, but I couldn't refine it. If the sect has a way to refine a fire attribute variant, it would be great. Ling Shiqi didn't hide anything. If he wanted to use the Blood Garment Pavilion's resources to refine the pure gold earth dragon flame, he couldn't hide it. At this moment, Mo Shuang Ghostly Man looked at Ling Shiqi with a strange expression and said, You came at the right time. Hearing this, Ling Shiqi knew that there was a chance. Mo Shuang Ghostly Man said with a smile, There is someone in the sect who has refined a fire attribute variant. That person has an ice attribute variant. There was someone in the sect with a fire attribute variant? And it just so happened to be an ice attribute variant. Ling Shiqi thought that he had misheard. If there was someone who could refine a fire attribute variant, then they must know the method to refine it. And that person just so happened to be an ice attribute variant. He could help Ling Shiqi suppress the pure gold earth dragon flame. This person was more important than a large pile of ice attribute materials. This was like someone giving him a pillow when he was about to doze off. Ling Shiqi felt that returning to the main pavilion this time was really worth it. He quickly asked, Vice Pavilion Master, may I ask who that person is? Mo Shuang Ghostly Man said with a strange smile, You just met. He hasn't gone far yet. Just met? Ling Shiqi immediately thought of Bing Shang and Meng Ming. He immediately determined that the one with the ice attribute variant was definitely Bing Shang. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that he had seen Bing Shang use a special pure white cold chi in the illusion spirit's secret realm. However, he never thought that it was a fire attribute variant. Because he also cultivated cold chi, he knew that there were many variations of cold chi. For example, his triple extinction sword chi was a variation of cold chi. Eunuch Gao's cold underworld chi and Shi Feiying's crimson ice crystals were the same. Therefore, he never thought that Bing Shang would have an ice attribute variant. With this, Ling Shiqi finally understood why Bing Shang became Mo Shuang Ghostly Man's disciple. A person who could refine a fire attribute variant was definitely worth nurturing. Mo Shuang Ghostly Man was the most suitable person to teach him in the Blood Clothing Pavilion. Mo Shuang Ghostly Man continued, I've already sent a message to Bing Shang. He'll help you refine the pure gold earth dragon flame. As for any materials and resources you need, you can use them as you wish. Not long after, Bing Shang returned. Mo Shuang Ghostly Man must have told him the whole story, so he didn't ask and directly said, "Senior Brother Lang, I will do my best to help you refine the pure gold earth dragon flame. My zero-bound ice has the characteristics of extreme cold. It's very suitable for suppressing all kinds of flames." But his words caused Leng Shiqi's heart to tremble. The variant ice Death possessed was the zero-bound ice that Nine Leaf had mentioned not long ago. Chapter 501. While Leng Shiqi was shocked, he also thought about it. Nine Leaf had said that the zero-bound ice was originally in the demonic Miasma mountain range, but it was taken away by a spirit cultivator. But that spirit cultivator was definitely not Bing Shang, because the age did not match. Then what was the relationship between Bing Shang and that person? It seemed that Bing Shang was still hiding some secrets. Of course, everyone had their own secrets, and Leng Shiqi did not want to look into it. As long as Bing Shang could help him refine the scarlet gold earth dragon flame, it was fine. "Bing Shang, I'll leave the matter of refining the scarlet gold earth dragon flame to you. Once it's done, Master will reward you greatly," Ink Frost Ghost Man said. Bing Shang was secretly shocked. He did not understand what Leng Shiqi had just done or said to make Ink Frost Ghost Man, a famous expert, value him so highly. "Disciple will do his best. You can leave." Ink Frost Ghost Man waved his hand and then secretly transmitted to Leng Shiqi, "I'll help you choose a few elite disciples. In this period of time, you can focus on refining the scarlet gold earth dragon flame." Leng Shiqi and Bing Shang cupped their fists and said, "Disciple will leave." After leaving the Blood Kill Hall, Bing Shang gave Leng Shiqi a jade strip and said, "Senior Brother Leng, this records my experience of refining the zero-bound ice. Different types of heaven and earth variants use different methods, but the general idea is the same. Senior Brother Leng can study it first." Leng Shiqi took the jade strip and said, "It's better if you don't call me Senior Brother, it sounds awkward. Why don't we call each other as equals? This jade strip is incomparably precious, and I can't take it for free. Take this bottle of pills." As he said that, Leng Shiqi took out a small green bottle with 3 awakening pills inside. To normal spirit pulse realm cultivators, the awakening pill was an extremely precious treasure. It was the key to breaking through the spirit aperture realm, and also a great help in opening the spirit aperture realm. Bing Shang naturally wanted it as well. Although he was Ink Frost Ghost Man's disciple, the Blood Robe Pavilion's rules did not give their disciples too many resources. If you want resources, you can exchange them with blood droplets. This was the principle of the Blood Robe Pavilion that could not be changed. As a master, he could teach you a unique cultivation method, but he would not give you many cultivation resources. At most, he would help you prepare some tasks that were more cost-effective. Therefore, Bing Shang didn't have many awakening pills on him. He was already at the late stage of the spirit pulse realm, so he should be preparing to break through to the spirit aperture realm. Leng Shiqi's actions were exactly what Bing Shang wanted. Bing Shang didn't refuse. He cupped his hands and accepted the awakening pill. "Brother Leng, refining the crimson gold earth dragon flame still requires a lot of preparation. Even though Master has said that we can take any materials we want, it will still take around 10 days to set everything up. I remember that Brother Leng also cultivates cold qi. You can take advantage of this time to cultivate cold qi protective spiritual techniques, which will increase your chances of success." That's exactly what I was thinking. Leng Shiqi and Shi Feiying's crimson ice crystal formula had not been fully comprehended, so there was still room for improvement. "Alright, then I'll start preparing. When everything is done, I'll go to the Formless Palace to look for you. Sorry to trouble you, Brother Bing. Goodbye." After the two parted ways, Leng Shiqi didn't return to the Formless Palace. Instead, he went to the Blood Book Hall to choose a body refining technique. After arriving at the Blood Book Hall, Leng Shiqi skillfully passed through the restrictions. Under the guidance of the disciple who was in charge of this place, he arrived at the 5th floor of the Blood Book Hall. This was the place where rank 6 cultivation techniques and spiritual techniques were stored. The 5th floor was much smaller than the floor below. It was about the same size as his courtyard. There were 20 to 30 bookshelves with jade slips on them. Ling Shiqi looked around and went directly to the rank 6 cultivation techniques section. There were only 9 bookshelves here. At a glance, there were around 400 to 500 jade slips. This meant that there were around 400 to 500 rank 6 cultivation techniques and spiritual techniques in the Blood Book Hall. Outside, rank 5 cultivation techniques and spiritual techniques were precious resources that couldn't be bought with money, let alone rank 6 cultivation techniques. Among the geniuses who participated in the elite meeting, only a handful had rank 6 spiritual techniques. This showed how precious rank 6 cultivation techniques were. And in front of Ling Shiqi, there were hundreds of them. This was simply shocking. This didn't include the Netherworld Blood Cloak Assassins and the few Sky Origin stage cultivators. From this, it could be seen that the Blood Robe Pavilion was a top sect. It was simply not something an ordinary cultivator could imagine. Ling Shiqi casually picked up a jade slip. It was a rank 6 cultivation technique, Butterfly Dance Colorful Poison Technique. It was a poison technique that was cultivated by a woman. Of course, the jade slip only had a brief introduction of the cultivation technique in 1 or 2 sentences. It was not the real thing. This also dispelled Ling Shiqi's hope. Soon after, he started to pick out a body refinement cultivation method from the numerous cultivation methods. It had to be said that body refinement cultivation methods were really rare. After less than an hour, Ling Shiqi had looked through all the cultivation methods and only found 4 6th level body refinement cultivation methods. They were Ice Skin Jade Bone Book, Vajra 100 Battle Pictures, 7 Luminaries Black Sun Art, and Ancient Wild Beast Divine Body. Ling Shiqi first put down Ice Skin Jade Bone Book. This was also a body tempering technique created for a woman. He couldn't help but want to ridicule it. Which woman would choose the path of body tempering technique? This cultivation technique was purely of little value. It was a rank 6 cultivation technique in vain. The remaining 3 cultivation techniques each had their own characteristics. The Vajra 100 Battle Portraits, as its name implied, was a body refinement cultivation technique that leaned heavily on defense. After mastering it, one would be able to cultivate an indestructible Vajra body, and it would be difficult for 100 weapons to injure the body in the slightest. 7 Luminaries Black Sun Art was a body tempering technique that required the assistance of some special flames. After mastering it, not only could one control the flames at will, but one could also ignore many fire spirit skills. As for Ancient Wild Beast Divine Body, it had been passed down for a long time. It was a cultivation technique created by an eccentric person who imitated the Ancient Beast Divine Body. When cultivated to the extreme, one could become a wild beast divine body with unparalleled power. However, this cultivation method required one to fuse with powerful beasts in order to continue cultivating. It was somewhat similar to the demonic beast art that Ling Shiqi had cultivated in the past. Ling Shiqi's eyes flashed with a bit of hesitation. After a little hesitation, he first eliminated Vajra 100 Battle Pictures. His fighting style had always been relatively aggressive. He was good at using offense as defense, so this cultivation technique was a bit inconsistent with his style. The key was to make a choice between 7 Luminaries Black Sun Art and Ancient Wild Beast Divine Body. The advantages and disadvantages of 7 Luminaries Black Sun Art were very obvious. What Ling Shiqi considered was that when he refined the Red Gold Earth Dragon Flame, with the support of the Heavenly Flame, the power of this cultivation technique would definitely increase by several times. However, Ancient Wild Beast Divine Body was more compatible with his own cultivation technique. Especially his demonic beast blood pattern armor was destroyed by the world-burning fire not long ago. It was just right for him to switch to this cultivation technique. For a time, Ling Shiqi was a bit of a dilemma. Chapter 502. Ling Shiqi began to carefully comprehend the chance of the 2 cultivation methods. When he was comprehending the chance of Ancient Beast Godly Body, a light suddenly flashed in his mind. The most difficult part of cultivating this cultivation method was to fuse with beasts, and they had to be powerful beasts. In today's world, beasts were too rare. If he wanted to cultivate this cultivation method, he had to make a special trip to the demonic miasma mountain range. For Leng Shiqi, he had always been short on time. How could he have time to go to the demonic miasma mountain range? This was also one of the reasons why he hadn't made a decision yet. But he suddenly remembered that the beasts mentioned in the cultivation method might not necessarily be beasts. Wasn't the evil creature that he and Nine Leaf killed a few days ago also a strange beast? According to Nine Leaf, that thing had been dead for God knows how many years, but it still maintained such a powerful combat strength. It was definitely a very powerful beast. If he could fuse with it, it would definitely increase his strength. Compared to Seven Planets Black Sun technique, Ancient Beast Godly Body was more suitable for Leng Shiqi. So he made his choice. At the entrance of the Blood Book Palace, Leng Shiqi got a copy of the cultivation method. He only had a month to cultivate it. After a month, the cultivation method would self-destruct. For Leng Shiqi, who had unlimited skill points, it was naturally not a problem. After getting the cultivation method, Leng Shiqi immediately rushed back to the Formless Palace. He was afraid that if he delayed any longer, Nine Leaf would cause trouble. When he returned to his small courtyard in the Formless Palace, he found that Nine Leaf was obediently waiting in the courtyard. He was finally relieved. But he still looked at Nine Leaf suspiciously. It was a bit unbelievable that Nine Leaf could be so obedient. Why, surprised? Nine Leaf teased, to tell you the truth, my primordial spirit has already explored the Blood Cloth Pavilion. Unfortunately, there are many places that are heavily guarded and I can't move an inch. At this time, Leng Shiqi realized that Nine Leaf, as a 7th-rank great beast that was good at the Tao of Soul, must have cultivated a primordial spirit long ago. Perhaps it was because Nine Leaf's primordial spirit had also recovered because he had reverted to a rank 5 demonic beast. Thus, he had the ability to let his primordial spirit leave his body. With the strength of the 9 abandonment primordial spirit, it was definitely far stronger than the Leng Shiqi. It was completely capable of roaming the 4 seas. This was a good thing. It would save Nine Leaf the trouble of running around himself. Without waiting for Leng Shiqi to speak, Nine Leaf asked again, "How long will we stay here?" "I have found a way to refine the red gold earth dragon flame, but I still need some time to prepare, about 10 days. Leng Shiqi answered truthfully. 10 days? Nine Leaf looked a little dissatisfied. "All right, but after we leave, you have to take me to the imperial capital with you." Leng Shiqi was shocked. Nine Leaf wanted to go to the imperial capital? In Leng Shiqi's original expectation, when Nine Leaf had enough time in the blood-clothed pavilion, she should be able to play on her own. With her current strength, at least in Mukon County, she could do whatever she wanted. But he had never thought that Nine Leaf wanted to go to the imperial capital. What kind of place was the imperial capital? To put it bluntly, a brick could hit a large number of Gang Spirit Realm masters there. Masters of Oneness of Heaven and Men Realm were also very common. Even Tianyuan Realm masters would occasionally show up. If Nine Leaf, a demonic beast, dared to show up in the imperial capital, she would probably be discovered easily. And once she, a 7th-level great demon with a greatly damaged cultivation, was discovered, she would most likely be targeted by those Tianyuan Realm masters and captured. The consequences would be unimaginable. Could it be that Nine Leaf had become arrogant after recovering some strength? Nine Leaf suddenly pinched a strange seal, and her aura immediately became a little strange. Originally, even if Nine Leaf was wearing a black robe, she still faintly gave off a different feeling. But now, she was no different from a very ordinary black-clothed killer. Then Nine Leaf took off her black robe and mask, revealing her true appearance. Her figure and appearance did not change at all, but in Leng Shiqi's eyes, she was not as stunning as before. She was still beautiful, but she gave people a slightly ordinary feeling. Leng Shiqi raised his eyebrows. What kind of strange secret method was this? Nine Leaf smiled proudly and said, "After I devoured the old man's soul, I sorted out some ancient secret methods from the soul fragments. This is one of them. This secret method is called life-hiding technique. Although there is nothing special about it, it can fundamentally hide the aura of life. Now, even if I stand in front of a Tianyuan realm master, my true form will not be seen through. If you are willing to take me to the imperial capital, I can give you this secret method. Of course, Leng Shiqi wanted this kind of magical secret method, but the imperial capital was simply an abyss. The slightest carelessness would lead to a tragic death. With Nine Leaves' character, it was absolutely impossible for her to know her place. Just as he was hesitating, Nine Leaves spoke again, but now her tone was obviously colder. Leng Shiqi, you have to know that even if you don't take me, I can still go by myself. I just don't think it is troublesome, so I want to use your identity to enter the imperial capital openly. Moreover, it is inevitable that you will encounter some troublesome matters in the imperial capital. With me here, as long as you can give me the corresponding reward, I can help you. What are you hesitating for? Nine Leaves' words had already reached this point. If Leng Shiqi still refused, he would be ignorant of the situation. He could only nod and say, I will listen to Senior's orders. Humph, you are wise. Nine Leaf proudly raised her head, and then shot a green light directly into Leng Shiqi's forehead. That was the life-hiding technique. Since the matter was settled, Leng Shiqi returned to his room and released the goo worms to protect himself. He began to retreat. And what he needed to do was to cultivate the ancient wild beast godly body. He first released the corpse of the evil beast, and the entire room was suddenly filled with a strange evil qi. This level of demonic qi did not have any effect on Leng Shiqi. He took out the gray crystal stone. He guessed that this thing should be something similar to a demonic core. It should be the core of this demonic object. Then, he took out the ancient wild beast godly body and used his unlimited skill points to learn it. After about half an hour, Leng Shiqi's eyes shone brightly. He stretched out a finger, and the sword qi on it was sharp. Then, he turned the sword qi to himself. Puchi. The sword qi cut open Leng Shiqi's skin, and it was still going deep, reaching his bones. Leng Shiqi endured the severe pain and cut himself bit by bit until his whole body was covered in blood. But if one looked carefully, they would find that he had carved a monster pattern on his body. The pattern was exactly the same as the evil beast. Ha! Leng Shiqi suddenly let out a low roar, and the demonic beast corpse in front of him slowly floated up. He continuously sent out seals, and the demonic beast corpse gradually shrank until it was about the same size as the blood-red pattern carved by Leng Shiqi. At this time, Leng Shiqi's eyes were serious, because the most crucial moment was coming. Chapter 503. Then he opened his mouth and swallowed the gray crystal. With a muffled sound, the evil energy contained in the crystal exploded in Leng Shiqi's body, instantly tearing apart many of his meridians. However, Leng Shiqi had no intention of stopping. He continued to make seals, and the demonic beast's corpse resonated with the crystal in his body. It was as if the corpse regarded Leng Shiqi as its core and took the initiative to integrate into it. However, the friction between flesh and blood made Leng Shiqi's scalp tingle with pain. Even if his willpower was amazing, he was almost in a state of fainting. Leng Shiqi had been frantically operating his mental power to force himself to stay awake, but this way, the pain he received became more and more clear. Outside, Nine Leaf also noticed a trace of strangeness. She muttered, "What the hell is he doing now?" However, she did not care much and continued to wander. Time passed little by little. Unknowingly, the room was covered in blood. The smell of blood mixed with the evil energy was unbearable. However, Leng Shiqi was suffering a pain that was 1,000 times worse than this. At this moment, most of the demonic beast's corpse had integrated into Leng Shiqi's body, and his body had changed a little. Especially the skin of his limbs, it had turned light gray, the color that only the dead would have. If this continued, he was afraid that he would be completely eroded by the evil energy and death energy before he could completely integrate the demonic beast's corpse. Leng Shiqi did not panic. Just as he was about to collapse, the seals in his hands changed, and an ancient aura that seemed to come from the wilds suddenly appeared. That aura instantly suppressed the evil aura and death aura that filled the room. The most difficult part of the cultivation process of ancient wild beast divine body was to integrate the beast's body. Naturally, there were ways to deal with it in the cultivation method. In this way, Ling Shiqi integrated all the remaining demonic beast's corpse into his body. Immediately, the evil qi around Ling Shiqi exploded. At the same time, the ancient and violent aura was slightly restrained, no longer suppressing the evil qi. Instead, it began to merge with the evil qi. At the same time, Ling Shiqi's body kept making crackling sounds. His body kept twisting strangely. Boom! Ling Shiqi's aura suddenly increased, and his body grew larger. He suddenly felt an itch on his shoulders, as if something was about to come out. In fact, this was indeed the case. At this moment, there were 2 bloody holes behind his shoulders, and 2 short and delicate arms that were as small as babies drilled out from them. As soon as the pair of arms appeared, they began to frantically absorb all kinds of energy in the room, as well as Ling Shiqi's qi, blood, and spiritual energy. The pair of arms grew at a speed visible to the naked eye, and soon, they had grown to the size of an adult. Ling Shiqi actually grew 2 more arms. He immediately had a very strange feeling. He tried to control the pair of arms. However, the newly grown arms were very unfamiliar, and it was a bit difficult to control. He could only make a few simple movements. However, Ling Shiqi's transformation didn't stop there. 2 short gray horns that curved backward gradually grew on both sides of his forehead. What was even stranger was that a half-foot-long tail extended from his back. Now, Ling Shiqi looked 70% similar to the demonic beast. After all these changes were over, Ling Shiqi made the last seal. Roar! An ancient beast's roar resounded through the sky. Behind Ling Shiqi, a huge shadow of 12 feet appeared. It was the appearance of the demonic beast. Ling Shiqi's aura also rose steadily. Without using the blood mark of serenity, he was completely comparable to the 9th level of the spirit aperture realm. This was the ancient wild beast divine body. Of course, this was not a pure amplification technique. In essence, it was still a body refining technique. However, the method of refining the body was a bit different. First, you had to refine a beast. After transforming, your whole body was actually under an unimaginable burden. When you were greatly amplified, it was also constantly refining your body. The duration of the transformation was also directly related to the strength of the cultivator's body. However, who would choose to transform when they had nothing to do? In other words, this cultivation method had to be cultivated through battle after battle. Only then would it advance faster. After finally cultivating the ancient wild beast divine body, Ling Shiqi let out a sigh of relief. He first simply adapted to the state after the transformation. In the transformation state, Ling Shiqi had 4 arms. It could be said that his battle strength had directly increased. This was because the 2 extra arms could use another spiritual technique at the same time. For example, the original arms could use sword techniques, the new arms could use blade techniques, or use spiritual techniques. He alone was equivalent to having the battle prowess of 2 people. For someone like Ling Shiqi who had many spiritual techniques, it was not as simple as 1 + 1. If he were to duel with Ji Wen again, he was confident that he could kill him within 10 moves. Of course, the consumption of his spiritual power would definitely increase greatly, but compared to the increase in his battle strength, it was nothing. In addition, he had an extra tail. Ling Shiqi controlled the tail to swing gently in front of him. He saw that there was an extremely sharp needle at the end of the tail. This tail could not only help him adjust his body, but it could also be used as a means of attack. Unfortunately, Ling Shiqi was already beginning to feel a bit weak. It was obvious that he could not maintain the ancient wild beast divine body for a long time. He hurriedly cancelled the transformation. Under the circulation of his spiritual power, the wounds on his body quickly healed. These were only superficial wounds and were nothing. The troublesome part was the damaged meridians in his body and the loss of blood. Fortunately, he was also prepared and swallowed a few medicinal pills to recuperate his internal injuries and replenish his blood. However, Ling Shiqi did not close his eyes to adjust his breathing. Although his eyes were full of fatigue, they were frighteningly bright. Then his body suddenly lit up with complex and mysterious patterns. These patterns connected with each other and suddenly exuded an ancient and wild aura. This was the rank 6 secret technique that Dichuan had traded to him, Desolate Seal. This was also a type of amplification secret technique, but what it amplified was not one's cultivation or spiritual power, but one's pure strength. At the same time, Ling Shiqi's body circulated the Blood Kills 7 Fiend art. His body was surrounded by blood and evil aura. This was not the end. He crazily mobilized the ancient wild beast divine body that he had just successfully cultivated. The evil aura and the terrifying aura of a wild beast emerged. The entire room was instantly shrouded in all kinds of strange and powerful auras. What Ling Shiqi wanted to do next was to fuse the Desolate Seal, Blood Kills 7 Fiend art, and ancient wild beast divine body. Chapter 504. Ling Shiqi was not whimsical. When he broke through to the Spirit Pulse realm in the Yao Miasma mountain range, he fused 3 cultivation methods together, which was the Heaven Fiend 9 Hell Demonic Beast Sacrificial Blood Record. The name of this cultivation method was long enough and seemed very powerful, but compared to Ling Shiqi's various powerful cultivation methods, it was not enough. There weren't many rank 6 cultivation methods. The 7 Fiend Blood Slaughter art was a complete rank 7 cultivation method, and the 10,000 Spirit Devouring art was a complete rank 8 cultivation method. These weren't things that the Heaven Fiend 9 Nether Demon Beast Sacrificial Blood Record could compare with. But then again, for Ling Shiqi, the 7 Fiend Blood Slaughter art played more of a supporting role. The 10,000 Spirit Devouring technique was even less useful. This cultivation method needed to be combined with a large number of goo worms with different characteristics to display its true power. Ling Shiqi did not have many goo worms left, and they were all relatively low level and were not very useful. The Goo King was very convenient to use, and because of this, he did not need to use the 10,000 Spirit Devouring technique at all to use the Goo King at will. Therefore, Ling Shiqi wanted to use the Heaven Fiend 9 Hell Demonic Beast Sacrificial Blood Record as a foundation to create his own cultivation method. This was because he always had to be on guard against one person, and that was the system. When Ling Shiqi broke through to the Spirit Aperture realm, he had erased the consciousness of the system. However, before the consciousness of the system died, he had always been worried. Perhaps the consciousness of the system would reappear in the future. He was not blindly thinking. Every time he sold an item to the system, a small part of a strange power would appear in his body. So where did the rest of the power go? Ling Shiqi guessed that the power might have been absorbed by the consciousness of the system. It was just that the consciousness of the system was still very weak and could not be detected by him. And if he wanted to deal with the consciousness of the system, the cultivation methods that he cultivated from the system would be useless. Ling Shiqi also knew this, but if he did not use the system to cultivate, even if he was given a few years, he might not be able to comprehend all of the high-level cultivation methods that he had. If he wanted to increase his strength as quickly as possible, he had no choice but to use the system. This seemed to be a paradox, but Ling Shiqi had found a way to guard against the system's consciousness and make use of the system at the same time. That was to fuse cultivation techniques. Just like how fused spiritual techniques could be used to deal with the system's consciousness, as long as he fused a high-grade cultivation method, he would have the upper hand in the next battle with the system. Of course, the system's consciousness was only Ling Shiqi's imaginary enemy, but even if he guessed wrong, it was better to be safe than sorry. Moreover, the fusion of the cultivation techniques this time wouldn't be too difficult, because he planned to upgrade and expand the foundation of the Heaven Fiend 9 Hell Demonic Beast Sacrificial Blood Record. The Celestial Fiend 9 Serenity's Demon Beast's Crimson Blood Record contained a part of the 7 Fiend Blood Art. Now that Ling Shiqi had the complete 7 Fiend Blood Art, he could use this as a breakthrough. But before that, Ling Shiqi still had one more thing to do, and that was to recuperate. Just now, when he cultivated the ancient wild beast divine body, he still consumed a lot of spiritual power and blood, so he still had to adjust his state before trying to fuse the cultivation techniques. 3 days later, with the help of elixirs and high-grade resources, Ling Shiqi's injuries had mostly healed. At the same time, he hadn't been idle during these 3 days. The primordial spirit in the sea of consciousness had also been deducing the cultivation techniques. The progress was relatively smooth, and he could already try it. Next, the first thing Ling Shiqi had to do was to integrate the complete 7 Fiend blood art into the Celestial Fiend 9 Hell Demonic Beast Sacrificial Blood Record. Doing so might cause the cultivation techniques to be unbalanced, and Ling Shiqi had to integrate the Desolation Seal and the Ancient Wild Beast Divine Body before the cultivation techniques were unbalanced. Ling Shiqi began to operate the cultivation techniques in his body, and a faint demonic qi rose around his body. A few light green demonic qi appeared in his eyes, and several blood-red lines appeared on his body. Immediately, those blood-red lines suddenly expanded, almost covering 2/3 of his body, and the demonic qi were suppressed. Ling Shiqi suddenly felt the spiritual power in his body gradually become violent, and his blood was constantly surging. He knew that this was caused by the imbalance of the cultivation techniques. This was just the beginning. If he continued, the situation in his body would only get worse and worse. Therefore, Ling Shiqi knew that he didn't have much time. With a thought, his body suddenly underwent a huge change. His skin quickly darkened, and a burst of evil qi came out of his body. Horns grew on his head, arms grew on his back, and a long tail stretched out behind him. The shadow of an evil beast flashed behind him, and Ling Shiqi's spiritual power suddenly surged. The Ancient Wild Beast Divine Body. This was not the end of it. After Ling Shiqi transformed, he used the Seal of Desolation, and the back of his body lit up with runes that emitted a wild aura. His muscles seemed to be on the verge of exploding, and his strength increased by another level. At this moment, Ling Shiqi's demonic qi, evil qi, and wild aura intertwined, rising and falling one after another, and collided with each other. It was easier said than done to fuse these spiritual powers together. Ling Shiqi was not in a hurry. Instead, he didn't care about these things. He saw the demonic qi that had been suppressed before appear again, and compete with the 3 powers. What was even crazier was that Ling Shiqi's eyes instantly turned emerald green, and pure demonic qi shot out like 2 laser beams. In fact, Ling Shiqi did not have much demonic qi, but when he was condensing his primordial spirit, the heavenly demon soul crystal inexplicably merged with his primordial spirit. Therefore, from a certain point of view, Ling Shiqi already had a part of the demon soul, which was why he could mobilize pure demonic qi. But in this way, the 3 powers in the room became 5. Demonic qi, demonic qi, demonic qi, wild aura, and demonic qi. And what Ling Shiqi had to do was to fuse these 5 spiritual powers. This kind of thing might not be impossible in the future, but it was definitely unprecedented. Who could have these 5 powers at the same time? If Ling Shiqi did not have the system, he would have exploded and died. Ling Shiqi's idea was crazy enough, but he was not reckless, and he would never be reckless. First, he familiarly fused the demonic qi, and blood fiend qi. Moreover, the process went very smoothly because it was the combination of these 3 powers that created the Heavenly Fiend 9 Underworld Demonic Beast Blood Roar record. On the other side, although the demonic qi and wild aura did not fuse so smoothly, there was no rejection. This was also the reason why Ling Shiqi chose the Wild Beast Godly Body technique. This technique had been passed down for a long time, and it had some characteristics of ancient techniques, which was similar to the Desolate Seal. Moreover, the Desolate Seal was not a technique, but a secret technique, so it was not difficult to fuse it with the Wild Beast Godly Body. Not long after, Ling Shiqi successfully fused the 2 together, and he was ready to welcome the most difficult step of fusing the techniques. Chapter 505. On the left side of Ling Shiqi, there was a mass of gray spiritual energy. It was a mass of spiritual energy that contained blood qi, devil qi, and demon qi. On the right side, there was a light brown gas. It was a strange energy that was born from the combination of evil qi and the Manghuang seal. What Ling Shiqi had to do now, which was the most important part, was to fuse these two completely different forces. The gray gas on the left was relatively balanced and well-behaved, but the one on the right was very violent. If it weren't for Ling Shiqi's full control, it would have blown up his small courtyard. Ling Shiqi tried to slowly bring the two forces together. At first, it was relatively smooth. After all, Ling Shiqi had been fusing spiritual techniques for many years, and his control of spiritual energy was very strong. But when he was halfway through, he suddenly felt an extremely strong rejection between the two. If he wanted to fuse them directly, it would not work. Ling Shiqi sighed slightly. If that was the case, then he had to use another method. He controlled the gray spiritual energy on the left to float and slowly revolve around the light brown energy. As the gray spiritual energy revolved, it constantly condensed and became a little sticky. In the end, the gray spiritual energy turned into something similar to a spiritual spiral and wrapped around the other force. He was imitating the method used to fuse the Great Brightness Fist and Black Lotus Demon Fist. Since these two completely opposite forces could be fused, it should be easier now. Whether it was the devil qi or the evil qi, they were both yin forces. In terms of their roots, they were still similar. The only difficult thing to deal with was the Manghuang seal. So Ling Shiqi formed a spring with the light brown energy as the center, and the gray spiritual energy was equivalent to the spiritual spiral. As the two intertwined, they slowly approached each other. Ling Shiqi's eyes focused on where they intersected. Closer, closer. The spiritual spiral and the spring were finally connected. This time, there was no rejection like before. Ling Shiqi's eyes suddenly lit up with joy. However, he immediately suppressed this joy. The Heaven Fiend 9 Hell Demonic Beast blood scripture in his body was now out of balance, and his blood was surging even more violently. Moreover, he was also maintaining his ancient wild beast god body transformation. He was constantly consuming his spirit force and stamina, and he was enduring great pain. Moreover, this was only the beginning. The later stages would definitely be more difficult. He couldn't afford to be distracted in the slightest. Ling Shiqi's next step was to completely merge the light brown spring into his spiritual spiral. He used his mind to control the two types of energy. The gray spiritual energy gradually gathered while the light brown spring gradually dispersed and began to rotate with each other. This was a good sign. Ling Shiqi endured the pain in his body as he continued to fuse the two powers. Unknowingly, his clothes were drenched in sweat. He didn't notice it at all. He was completely focused. His face showed signs of fatigue, but the light in his eyes kept flashing. After an unknown period of time, the two balls of energy became more and more viscous, and their original color became a faint black. At first glance, it looked like a black millstone was floating in front of Ling Shiqi, slowly rotating. Ling Shiqi saw that the time was right. He suddenly put his hands together, and the black millstone suddenly twisted, as if a pair of invisible hands were constantly kneading it. Gather! Ling Shiqi shouted sternly. Majestic spirit force swarmed out, forming a small invisible storm around him. A trace of blood flowed out from the corners of his eyes. He had pushed his spirit force to the extreme. The spirit storm condensed and forcibly suppressed the black millstone. This was the last straw that broke the camel's back. In the end, the black millstone no longer existed, leaving only a fist-sized ball of faint black water in the air. In fact, this was not a ball of water, but a purine force that was born after the fusion of 5 types of energy and the extreme compression. Finally, it's a success. Ling Shiqi no longer hid his excitement. He opened his mouth and swallowed the ball of water. Then, the faint black force immediately merged into his limbs and bones. The violent spirit force and blood force in his body were instantly subdued. However, at this time, Ling Shiqi had not completely merged the techniques. But as long as the 5 types of spirit force were merged, the fusion of the techniques would naturally occur. Then, Ling Shiqi simultaneously activated the Heaven Fiend 9 Hell Demonic Beast Blood Record, the complete version of the 7 Fiend Blood Art, the Ancient Wild Beast Divine Body, and the Desolation Seal. These different techniques did not interfere with each other at all and were extremely smooth. Chi. At this moment, a low sound continued to sound. The surface of Ling Shiqi's skin was torn open, and large gray scales grew from it. Scales covered his entire body. Even his arms and tail were covered in scales. What was even more strange was that layers of black keratin were constantly growing. In the blink of an eye, a set of armor was formed on each of Ling Shiqi's key points. This included a fully wrapped helmet on his head. The helmet looked extremely fierce and was very similar to the face of a demonic beast. And each part of the armor was connected to each other by blood-colored lines, and each piece of armor was imprinted with a different number of blood-colored runes. These blood-colored lines and runes flickered, exuding a bloody and violent aura. And the overall feeling that Ling Shiqi gave off was that it was gloomy and terrifying. When all the changes stopped, it was as if endless power surged through his body. Ling Shiqi gently clenched his fist. With a muffled sound, he directly crushed the air. So strong. Ling Shiqi was pleasantly surprised. This technique combines several auras. Let's call it the Desolation Demonic Blood Beast Body. At this time, there was a strong fighting spirit surging in the depths of his body, making him want to find someone to fight now. Suddenly, a white and delicate fist containing terrifying demonic power arrived in the blink of an eye. This fist seemed to stir up the spirit force between heaven and earth, and the entire room collapsed in an instant. The person who came was Nine Leaf. Ling Shiqi didn't know why Nine Leaves suddenly attacked, but at this time, his body was filled with endless fighting spirit. He gathered all his strength and didn't use any spirit techniques. He just threw out a simple punch. When the punch came out, a 200-foot-tall demonic beast phantom appeared behind Ling Shiqi, and the phantom also threw out a punch. Rumble. The two fists collided, and a terrifying and violent power suddenly erupted. The ground within a 1,000-foot radius cracked, and Ling Shiqi's small courtyard was directly torn apart by the force of the fist. However, all the things that were sent flying were blocked by purple light curtains when they flew 1,000 feet away. And between the two people fighting, Nine Leaf took 7 or 8 steps back, while Ling Shiqi was still standing in place. Looking carefully, there were several cracks on the armor on his fist, but even so, it was enough to prove the strength of Ling Shiqi. Nine Leaf clenched his fist, his red lips slightly opened, and his face was full of surprise. "You stinky brat, you actually have such terrifying power. What the hell did you do this time?" Chapter 506. After forcing Nine Leaf back with a punch, Ling Shiqi couldn't help but feel excited. However, he immediately put away these thoughts. Nine Leaf's punch didn't use any spiritual skills, just pure physical strength. It should be known that Nine Leaf was not a demon beast good at hand-to-hand combat. Now that he was in human form, his strength was reduced, so his pure strength was not very strong. Ling Shiqi couldn't be arrogant. But the simple punch just now also let him know that his strength after transformation was definitely stronger than a spirit cultivator who had just entered the gang spirit realm. Coupled with his high-level spiritual skills, he even dared to fight with a master in the middle stage of the gang spirit realm. Facing Nine Leaf's question, Ling Shiqi first saw that the small courtyard was covered by a purple light curtain. He cupped his fist and said, "Senior, thank you for covering for me." When he was fusing the cultivation method, he didn't make a big noise, but it wasn't small either. In particular, all kinds of strange auras were raging, and the waves also spread out a lot, so it alarmed Nine Leaf. She then set up a restriction to isolate all the waves. Nine Leaf waved his hand indifferently and walked slowly around Ling Shiqi, muttering from time to time. TSK, you really know how to make trouble. You're brave enough to refine the evil beast. That's also because Senior's super strength killed the evil beast, which gave me the opportunity to refine it. Now you're talking nicely. You'd better think about how to deal with the aftermath first. Nine-Leaf pointed to the mess around and said. Leng Shiqi removed the wild evil demon blood beast body with a wry smile on his face. Previously, he only wanted to fight and didn't care about anything else. Now, including his small courtyard, a large area had been destroyed to the point that it was unbearable to look at. This was not a casual place, this was the Formless Palace. If Formless knew that he almost tore down the Formless Palace, who knew what he would do? Leng Shiqi hurriedly went to find the two disciples who took care of the small courtyard. Fortunately, they had been driven out by Nine-Leaf and were not affected. There's a problem with my cultivation method. Find some people to fix this place as soon as possible. Leng Shiqi ordered. The two of them didn't dare to ask any more questions and just went to carry out the order. Leng Shiqi immediately activated Supercilious Eyes. It was good news that he didn't see Sulwan in Formless Palace. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to explain things to Sulwan. Nine-Leaf said sarcastically, someone was afraid that I would cause trouble in the Blood Garment Pavilion, and in the end, he almost caused trouble himself. He even needed me to help cover it up. Leng Shiqi also realized that Nine-Leaf did not have a fixed temperament. It was as if everything depended on her mood. In the past, Nine-Leaf had never been so sarcastic to him. As the saying goes, a woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the sea. It seems like this sentence is also applicable to demonic beasts. Leng Shiqi pretended not to hear anything and said, Senior, I'm going to prepare to refine the pure gold earth dragon flame. We can leave in 7 or 8 days at most. Go do whatever you want. Just call me when you need to leave. Leng Shiqi turned and left. He couldn't stay in this small courtyard any longer, so he planned to go find Bing Shang. It was good to get in touch with the materials needed to refine the pure gold earth dragon flame early. After asking around, he finally found Bing Shang's residence. Bing Shang was a bit surprised to see Leng Shiqi. Brother Leng, why are you here? But you came at the right time. I also have a question for you. There's no harm in asking. Leng Shiqi nodded. Bing Shang asked, how strong is Brother Leng's body? Brother Leng, please answer truthfully. This has a lot to do with whether or not you can refine the pure gold earth dragon flame. Refining the pure gold earth dragon flame was related to one's body. Leng Shiqi had already thought of this. That was why he continued to cultivate high-level body refining techniques. However, he really couldn't say for sure how strong his body was. After he transformed into the wild evil demon blood beast body, his strength was off the charts. However, his body under normal conditions was far weaker. He could only say, I've also cultivated body refining techniques. However, it's hard to say how strong my body is. Is there any standard? Bing Shang paused. Brother Leng, please wait. Then, he took out a cyan lamp from his mustard seed bag. Brother Leng, I'll use this thing to release some flames. This kind of flame is quite powerful, so don't resist it. Let's see how long you can last. Understood. Come. Under Bing Shang's spirit power, the green lamp spat out Qinyan. The temperature in the room rose rapidly. The flames swept through the air. Leng Shiqi was in the sea of flames. Feeling the heat of the flames, he felt it was just a so-so. He even wanted to say, that's it? Seeing that Leng Shiqi's expression didn't change, Bing Shang was stunned. He thought that there was something wrong with the flame. He subconsciously reached out and was frightened by the high temperature of the flames. Bing Shang couldn't help but reveal a look of shock and admiration. When he first entered the spirit vein realm, he assassinated a genius disciple of the Tang family. His name shook the Donglin County and he was known as the most outstanding genius in the Donglin County branch. At that time, Leng Shiqi was only at the mid-stage of the spirit transformation realm. He was just a small assassin in black. They weren't even in the same world. However, after a few years, their statuses had changed. Bing Shang didn't feel any jealousy. After all, he had seen Leng Shiqi's abnormal talent and strength in the illusion spirit's secret realm. However, Bing Shang had never thought Ling Shiqi's body would be so strong. He was bathed in flames but didn't seem to be affected. This was too terrifying. Bing Shang knew that Ling Shiqi was a dual cultivator of magic and martial arts. Now it seemed that he was a triple cultivator of spirit martial arts, spirit cultivation and spirit body. Bing Shang was also surprised. If Ling Shiqi's body was strong enough, it would be easier for him to refine the pure gold earth dragon flame. As long as Ling Shiqi could successfully refine the pure gold earth dragon flame, Bing Shang would be able to obtain a great reward from the Black Frost Ghost Man. Brother Leng's body is so strong. I admire it, but I still have to test Brother Leng's limit. Please don't blame me. With that, Bing Shang's spirit force surged and the Qin Yan quickly grew stronger. Ling Shiqi finally felt a trace of heat. He suddenly remembered that Lei Mayan had said that the various hardships they experienced in the small five-element Chaos Grotto Heaven would make them invulnerable to fire and water. He thought, it seems my body already has a very high fire resistance. He signaled Bing Shang to continue strengthening the flames. 2 crystal-clear spirit veins lit up beside Bing Shang's ears. He was using his full strength. Hoo, hoo, the raging flames even caused a whistling sound. Layers of formations flashed in the room. Even Bing Shang himself had to back away from the Qinyan. He looked over and found that Ling Shiqi was still standing in the sea of flames with a smile. Chapter 507. Bing Shang's mind almost went blank. Ling Shiqi's power was beyond his knowledge again and again. He couldn't help but ask, Brother Leng, are you okay? There's some burning pain, but it's still acceptable, Ling Shiqi said lightly. Bing Shang's mouth twitched. He said in a complicated tone, then let's stop here. If we increase the power of the flame, the formations here won't be able to handle it. Then how strong is my body? Ling Shiqi asked sincerely. However, Bing Shang thought that Ling Shiqi was showing off his physical body. He praised, Brother Leng's physical body is the strongest I've ever seen. Once everything is arranged, I dare say that Brother Leng has a 70% chance of successfully refining the Crimson Gold Earth Dragon Flame. 70%? This probability was actually quite high, but there was still a risk of failure. Ling Shiqi secretly decided to take advantage of the 6 or 7 days to increase his physical strength and cultivate the cold air, striving to increase the probability of success. Bing Shang put away the Qinyan and said, Brother Leng, go rest. I'll take care of the materials. Ling Shiqi was an outsider in this. Even if he wanted to help, he couldn't. Then I'll leave everything to you. Don't worry, Brother Leng. Then Bing Shang arranged a secret room for Ling Shiqi. Ling Shiqi didn't dare to waste any time. He immediately activated the wild demon blood beast body to refine his body. At the same time, waves of red cold energy rose around him and kept changing forms. Time slowly passed as Ling Shiqi cultivated. 7 days later, Bing Shang knocked on Ling Shiqi's secret room. Ling Shiqi knew the time was right. Brother Leng, all the materials are set up. Come with me. Bing Shang took Ling Shiqi through layers of formations and into an extremely cold ice cave. Bing Shang introduced, this is where Master used to cultivate. Now that he's given it to me, it's a great place to refine the flame. The moment Ling Shiqi entered the ice cave, he was greeted with a bone-piercing cold wind. He could completely endure it, but if it was an ordinary spirit aperture stage cultivator, they would have to activate their spirit armor to barely withstand it. If he refined the red gold earth dragon flame here, it would be much easier. This is a great place. This time, it's all thanks to Brother Bing. Bing Shang said a few polite words and formed a series of seals. A huge light blue array appeared in the ice cave. Once the array appeared, all the cold energy in the area was gathered into the array. The power of the ice instantly increased by several times. To refine a heaven and earth variant of the fire element, the environment is very important. With the existence of the ice cave and the formation, the environment is already perfect. Bing Shang changed the topic, but that's not enough. I have 2 frost pills here. After consuming them, they'll form cold energy in your body. They'll protect your meridians. Although this pill can help Brother Leng in the last step, before that, Brother Leng will have to endure the pain of the cold energy entering your body. Leng Shiqi was already numb to the word pain. He took the frost pill and said, as long as I can refine the red gold earth dragon flame, this pain is nothing. Bing Sheng took out a small pile of materials. 80% of them were ice-type materials. There was also a small amount of wood-type materials. He waved his hands and a dense pure white cold energy enveloped all the materials. Leng Shiqi stared at the pure white cold energy. That was Bing Sheng's zero-bound ice. Its biggest characteristic was that it had an extremely terrifying cold energy. It was a type of ice that could freeze flames. Bing Sheng continued. He used the cold energy to freeze all the materials. Then, he crushed them into powder. Then, he reformed them into an ice blue bed. There were traces of green light around the ice bed. It gave people a feeling of vitality. Seeing Bing Sheng's method, Leng Shiqi was quite shocked. This was a different method of refining. Unfortunately, he didn't know anything about refining, so he couldn't explain it. He could only say, amazing. Bing Sheng took out a few more pills and said, Brother Leng, these pills are very effective healing pills. If you can't take it in the end, take it. But that means the refining will fail. Leng Shiqi looked at the pills. Of course, he didn't want to use them. If Brother Leng is ready, then sit on the ice bed. We can start at any time. Leng Shiqi took a deep breath. He closed his eyes and took a few breaths to get rid of all the distracting thoughts. Then, he sat on the ice bed. Bing Sheng's 10 fingers shot out extremely cold threads. They formed an ice net above Leng Shiqi's head. Brother Leng, release the pure gold earth dragon flame. Our first step is to suppress its flames. Leng Shiqi nodded. His body also emitted a crimson cold energy. The cold energy condensed into pieces of ice crystals. Then, a cloak made of holy energy appeared behind him. He clenched his fists. A blinding light shone, making him look very holy. This wasn't the end. The Goo King flew out of the pet space and turned into a set of 5 colored glaze armor. It covered Leng Shiqi's body tightly. Bing Sheng was slightly surprised when he saw the crimson cold energy. However, he didn't dare to be distracted. He formed a seal with his hands and looked like he was facing a great enemy. Leng Shiqi opened the system space. With a thought, a crimson gold flame suddenly appeared. The moment the flame appeared, it violently churned. It was like a wild horse that had been restrained for a long time. As the flame burned, the surrounding air rapidly twisted. When it met the crimson ice around Leng Shiqi, half of it melted. Under the suppression of the ice cave and the formation, the temperature of the pure gold earth dragon flame was even more terrifying than Leng Shiqi expected. Just as the pure gold earth dragon flame was about to go berserk, Bing Sheng made his move. The extreme cold ice net fell from the sky, trapping Leng Shiqi and the crimson gold earth dragon flame. Zero-bound ice was also a natural variant. The ice net it turned into was not normal. When it came into contact with the pure gold earth dragon flame, it didn't evaporate. Instead, there were sizzling sounds. Leng Shiqi saw that the pure gold earth dragon flame had calmed down. He knew he couldn't take advantage of it. He used the secret method in the jade slip that Bing Sheng gave him. He quickly sent rays of light into the pure gold earth dragon flame. Shortly after, the crimson gold earth dragon flame's volume suddenly swelled, and its volume seemed to have increased by several tens of times. But strangely, the temperature of the pure gold earth dragon flame dropped a bit. At this moment, the ice bed under Leng Shiqi trembled. Endless cold energy poured out, forming layers of protection that kept Leng Shiqi safe. This method was to divide the pure gold earth dragon flame and then slowly consume it. Bing Sheng nodded at Leng Shiqi, indicating that he could start refining the pure gold earth dragon flame. Chapter 508. Ling Shiqi's breathing was slightly hurried. He changed the seal in his hand and attracted a wisp of flame from the huge flame. It was only a wisp of crimson gold earth dragon flame, but it contained a terrifying heat that made him sweat profusely. This was completely different from the green flame he had to endure before. Fortunately, there was a lot of cold air and formations around him, so the flame couldn't hurt him at all. Then, Ling Shiqi reached out his hand. After a layer of crimson ice crystals covered it, he actually grabbed the flame. After the flame was grasped, it immediately became restless. It trembled violently in Ling Shiqi's hand, causing the crimson ice crystals in his hand to melt into nothingness. Immediately after, the great light fist force flashed incessantly, finally suppressing this wisp of flame. Ling Shiqi let this strand of crimson gold earth dragon flame float beside him, then he stretched out his hand and pulled out another strand of flame. After a while, a small ball of crimson gold earth dragon flame gathered in front of him. This was a flame that he had completely subdued. Of course, this was only a temporary subjugation. Once Ling Shiqi's frost aura or great light fist force were exhausted, the crimson gold earth dragon flames would immediately devour him. "Brother Lang, it's about time." Bing Shang's voice was transmitted over. However, this time, his voice sounded a little lacking in confidence. Clearly, Bing Shang had consumed a lot of energy from controlling the zero-bound ice for a long time. Ling Shiqi didn't have much time left. Ling Shiqi's face showed some desperation. He then controlled the crimson gold earth dragon flame around him and wrapped it around himself. In an instant, all the crimson ice crystals were burned to nothing. Even the great light fist force was flickering. Fortunately, he still had the 5-colored armor to protect him from being devoured by the crimson gold earth dragon flame. Ling Shiqi's eyes turned pale. He could see a fingernail-sized flame seed in the center of the crimson gold earth dragon flame. His next step was to take out the flame seed. This meant that Ling Shiqi was going to enter the red gold earth dragon flame alone. This kind of thing was impossible under normal circumstances, but Ling Shiqi had already controlled a portion of the crimson gold earth dragon flame. He wanted to use the crimson gold earth dragon flame to resist the crimson gold earth dragon flame. As long as he could buy enough time to retrieve the fire seed, it would be fine. Ling Shiqi didn't dare to waste any time. Both he and Bing Shang's spirit energy was quickly depleting. Thunder exploded under his feet as he used the purple extreme lightning steps and charged at the red gold earth dragon flame. At the same time, Bing Shang roared and pushed the zero-bound ice to its limit. Pure white ice crystals tore a hole in the red gold earth dragon flame. Ling Shiqi took this opportunity to dive into the red gold earth dragon flame. Entering the flames, he felt as if he had fallen into a fiery hell. His entire body was scorching hot, causing his skin to turn scarlet red. The temperature of the red gold earth dragon flame once again shocked Ling Shiqi. His movements were not slow as he walked towards the fire seed that was locked onto by the Bikugan. The fire seed seemed to have intelligence. It also sensed the dangerous aura and started to move slowly. However, the fire seed's speed was still too slow compared to Ling Shiqi. Ling Shiqi went straight for the fire seed and quickly grabbed it. He held something that seemed to be solid but not solid. The fire seed suddenly churned violently and the fire spirit energy in the world was mobilized by it. Unfortunately, this was the ice cave where Ink Frost Ghost Man once cultivated. There was also a formation and zero-bound ice, so there was very little fire spirit energy here. Even so, a crimson stream still appeared in the air. Fiery light flowed within, extremely dazzling. The red stream turned into a dragon and charged at Ling Shiqi. At this moment, a pure white ice spear suddenly appeared and charged into the red gold earth dragon flame and stopped the red gold earth dragon flame. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ling Shiqi quickly retreated and left the red gold earth dragon flame. He then quickly dispersed the flames on his body. He looked down and saw a mini dragon-shaped flame wriggling in his palm. He could not help but murmur, "Is this the red gold earth dragon flame's fire seed?" Bing Shang said weakly, "Brother Leng, this matter should not be delayed." While I can still use zero-bound ice, quickly refine the fire seed. Ling Shiqi's expression became even more serious. This was the most crucial step. If he failed, everything would be for naught. And to refine the red gold earth dragon flame, the last step was to swallow the fire seed. This was also the most dangerous step. Spirit cultivators would not refine their bodies. Only very rare body cultivators would refine their bodies. Ling Shiqi believed that his body was not weak, but the inside of his body was still the weakest part. Swallowing the fire seed was equivalent to using the inside of his body to withstand the terrifying flames. Not to mention the red gold earth dragon flame, even if a random thing with a strange aura entered his body, it would be enough to kill him. But Ling Shiqi did not hesitate and swallowed the fire seed in one gulp. He always believed that danger and opportunity always coexisted. If he wanted to refine the red gold earth dragon flame to increase his strength, he would have to experience all kinds of life and death situations. When the fire seed entered his body, it was like a bomb exploding. Ling Shiqi's body trembled and even became a bit dazed. His face also became extremely pale. Fortunately, he had already swallowed the cold chi pill. There was already some cold chi in his body that protected his blood vessels and also slightly weakened a portion of the flames. But this was far from enough. Bing Shang made his move again. A pure white ice crystal appeared in his palm and he pressed it on Ling Shiqi's body. Then, threads of zero condensation ice seeped in and offset a small portion of the red gold earth dragon flame. Bing Shang said weakly, "Brother Ling, I can only help you up to here. The rest is up to you." Ling Shiqi did not say anything. His mind was completely immersed in his body. Under his inner vision, all the red gold earth dragon flame had already been dispersed to each of his spirit veins. Everywhere it went, it was crazily destroying his meridians. Even if his body was strong and there was cold chi protecting his body, there were still a few spirit veins that were damaged. And at this time, the benefits of Ling Shiqi opening up many spirit veins appeared. That was, it could greatly disperse the power of the red gold earth dragon flame. In just a few breaths of time, Ling Shiqi's body was almost completely destroyed. Outside, the green light around the ice bed drilled in. Bursts of life force entered his body and continuously repaired his spirit veins. At the same time, Ling Shiqi used a secret technique to continuously devour the red gold earth dragon flame through his spirit veins. As long as he devoured all the power of the fire seed, it would be the same as refining success. Time passed bit by bit. Ling Shiqi was experiencing inhuman pain every moment. His veins were bulging and his face was pale. Occasionally, his face would twist strangely a few times. It looked very horrifying. Gradually, the green light around the ice bed became fainter and the life force also decreased. The good news was that Ling Shiqi had already devoured most of the red gold earth dragon flame. Seeing that the life force was about to disappear, Ling Shiqi made a shocking move. Boom! A strange, cold, and powerful spirit pressure suddenly appeared. It instantly shattered the formation and the ice bed. Then, a gray and black battle armor covered Ling Shiqi's body. Behind him, a demon phantom appeared. Wild demon blood beast physique. The terrifying aura of the ancient wilderness filled the ice cave. Bing Shang was frightened by Ling Shiqi's appearance and quickly retreated. Logically speaking, the red gold earth dragon flame was very effective against the wild demon blood beast physique. However, Ling Shiqi couldn't care less. He planned to imitate the evil old man's method of dealing with Buddha Lotus and use absolute strength to suppress the red gold earth dragon flame. Suppression existed, but when one's strength reached a certain level, this suppression would no longer exist. For example, if Bing Shang were to fight Extreme Fire Village's village lord Zhu Huarong could easily kill Bing Shang with one move. This was absolute suppression of strength. At this moment, the remaining crimson gold earth dragon flame in Ling Shiqi's body was already very weak. However, if he waited until his life force was exhausted and he still couldn't completely devour it, then half of his spirit veins would be burned away. This was equivalent to cutting off his future cultivation path. Therefore, Ling Shiqi could only choose to suppress and devour the red gold earth dragon flame. After transforming into the wild demon blood beast physique, the red gold earth dragon flame in his body became even more violent. However, Ling Shiqi's body also underwent a qualitative change. At the same time, he circulated his spirit energy and suppressed the red gold earth dragon flame with all his might. It works. Ling Shiqi saw that it was effective and was overjoyed. He quickly devoured the flame. After about half an incense's time, Ling Shiqi suddenly dispelled his transformation. His body also lost its balance and fell to the ground. Bing Shang subconsciously wanted to help Ling Shiqi up, but he suddenly stopped because a dazzling red gold earth dragon flame suddenly burst out of Ling Shiqi's body. The flame turned into a dragon that soared into the sky and roamed around. Everywhere it passed, large amounts of ice crystals melted and turned the ice cave into a river. Even the entire ice cave felt a bit warmer. Whoosh! The crimson gold earth dragon flames abruptly retracted back into Ling Shiqi's body. Ling Shiqi walked over with a ball of fire in his hand. Within the ball of fire, there was a faint image of a divine dragon spiraling around, but it was extremely docile in his hand. Bing Shang was shocked and said, "Congratulations on refining the red gold earth dragon flame, Brother Leng." Chapter 509. Ling Shiqi smiled, "It's all thanks to Brother Bing's help. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to refine the pure gold earth dragon flame." What he said was the truth. Actually, the materials that Bing Shang prepared didn't play a crucial role in the entire process. Whether it was the ice cave, the formation, or the ice bed, they were all just support. The most important thing was Bing Shang's zero-bound ice. If it wasn't for zero-bound ice, Ling Shiqi wouldn't have been able to go deep into the pure gold earth dragon flame to obtain the fire seed. It could also be said that if it wasn't for Bing Shang, he wouldn't have been able to refine the pure gold earth dragon flame. To Bing Shang, he might only be following Ink Frost Ghost Man's orders. However, Ling Shiqi still owed Bing Shang a huge favor. Bing Shang said, "To be honest, when I refined zero-bound ice, it took me more than 10 years of preparation. I only finished it under my father's guidance. Brother Leng being able to refine the pure gold earth dragon flame in such a short time is truly admirable. After this matter, I will cultivate here for a while. Brother Leng, please do as you wish." Ling Shiqi knew that Bing Shang's spirit power was almost exhausted. He solemnly cupped his fist and said, "I will return to Formless Palace first. If Brother Bing needs my help in the future, just let me know." After that, Ling Shiqi strode away and returned to Formless Palace. A few days later, Formless Palace was already renovated. It was almost exactly the same as before. Ling Shiqi had just returned to the small courtyard when he bumped into Nine Leaf. Who would have thought that Nine Leaf would frown and float back a few steps when she saw him? "You really succeeded in refining it. However, the aura on your body makes me feel very uncomfortable." The pure gold earth dragon flame was very effective against all kinds of demons. Nine Leaf was no exception. Although she wasn't afraid, the aura of the pure gold earth dragon flame made her feel uneasy. Ling Shiqi scratched his head and said, "This junior was only able to refine the pure gold earth dragon flame by luck. Once I can fully control it, I will be able to control it freely." Nine Leaf's beautiful eyes flashed with a purple light. "I can see that your injuries aren't light. You should hurry up and recuperate. However, I will only wait for you for 3 days." It seemed that Nine Leaf had grown tired of staying in the Blood Garment Pavilion for the past 10 days. Ling Shiqi nodded and locked himself in his room. He sat down cross-legged and recuperated for a while. Then, he looked inside his body and found that there were still some residual flames flowing in each of his spirit veins. However, the current flames were not as violent as before. Instead, they were unusually docile. What was even more bizarre was that wisps of crimson flames began to merge into the damaged spirit veins. These damaged spirit veins were like rain after rain. They slowly stretched out, and the dozens of spirit veins in his body let out excited sounds. Even Leng Shiqi himself felt very comfortable. Unknowingly, more than half of his spirit veins had recovered. If one were to look closely, they would discover that the originally sparkling spirit veins had turned a light red color. Moreover, all the repaired spirit veins, flesh, and bones, whether in terms of toughness or hardness, had significantly increased. Refining the crimson gold earth dragon flame had actually helped him increase the strength of his body. This was a small surprise. As a result, he only needed 2 or 3 days to completely stabilize his injuries. Although he could not recover to his peak state, it was enough for him to fight normally. At this moment, Leng Shiqi suddenly realized. No wonder 9 Leaves said 3 days at most. She had already seen through it. In addition, he also found the fire seed of the crimson gold earth dragon flame in the spirit sea. Now, the fire seed had turned into a mini dragon and was flying freely in the spirit sea. However, it looked slightly dispirited. The refining this time had also caused some damage to the crimson gold earth dragon flame. However, at this moment, Leng Shiqi thought of another problem. That was, although he had refined the crimson gold earth dragon flame, he did not have many fire attribute spiritual techniques that he could use. He had a few high-grade spiritual techniques of various attributes. For the metal attribute, he had the spiritual techniques derived from the golden mystic yang method. For the wood attribute, he had the limitless dead wood incantation. For the water attribute, he had the continuous blue wave spear. For the earth attribute, he had the throbbing pulse of the earth. For the ice attribute, he had the crimson ice crystal technique. For the wind attribute, he had the nirvana remnant wind scroll. For the thunder attribute, he had the purple lightning thunder sound record. For the yang attribute, he had the great radiant fist. For the yin attribute, he had even more. He even had the 5 gods flowing light technique and the rare 10,000 goose spirit devouring technique. It could be said that he had all kinds of cultivation techniques and spiritual techniques. The only thing he lacked was a powerful fire attribute cultivation technique. Therefore, Leng Shiqi planned to get some fire attribute spiritual techniques on the way to or from the imperial capital. After all, he still had a large amount of high-grade resources in his mustard seed bracelet. He had to convert these things into what he needed the most. Right now, the only fire attribute spiritual technique he had was the fire symbol technique. He stretched out a finger and moved it in the air. Hula. As his finger moved, a stream of fire suddenly ignited. He wrote the word fire in front of him. Immediately after, the fire seed in his spirit sea trembled slightly. The flames of the word fire instantly turned into a crimson gold color. A terrifying wave of fire suddenly attacked. There was even a faint dragon roar in his ears. Leng Shiqi pushed lightly. The word fire whizzed out and directly smashed the door to the room. Not good. Leng Shiqi's expression changed. However, he had already used his spiritual technique and could not take it back. The word fire flew straight out. The terrifying flames burned everything in its path. In the blink of an eye, Leng Shiqi's vision opened up. All that was left was a scorched land that was several zhang wide and 100 zhang long. It was still emitting black smoke. Gulp. Leng Shiqi couldn't help but swallow his saliva. What he used was clearly a rank 3 spiritual technique, the fire symbol technique. Moreover, he didn't use all of his spiritual energy. Even if he used the fire symbol technique with his cultivation at the 6th layer of the spirit aperture realm, he would be able to display the power of a rank 4 spiritual technique. However, the hell-like scene in front of him made him a bit stupefied. He took a few steps forward. He could still feel the scorching aura in the air. Even with his body's strength and resistance to fire, he still found it difficult to breathe. It could be imagined how terrifying the flames were. This was the power of the crimson gold earth dragon flame. This was the power of a heaven and earth variant. Leng Shiqi also made up his mind, no, I have to get a high-level fire attribute spiritual technique at all costs. It has to be at least rank 5. No, rank 6. If he had a rank 6 fire attribute spiritual technique, combined with the crimson gold earth dragon flame, it would definitely become a great killing weapon in his hands. It would be equivalent to having another powerful trump card in his hands. However, just as he was secretly pleasantly surprised, a petite figure walked over. That person wasn't Jiuli, but Sulwan. Although Leng Shiqi couldn't see Sulwan's expression, he could clearly feel her anger. Leng, 10-7. Do you want to destroy Wuxiang Palace? Chapter 5-10. 3 days later, in the Bloodkill Hall. After learning that Leng Shiqi was going to the imperial capital, the Ink Frost Ghost Man gave him a few instructions. Leng Shiqi, the imperial capital is the center of the Thunderflame dynasty's power. Don't act rashly there. Think twice before you act. Remember, you are carrying the future of the Blood Garment Pavilion on your shoulders. Leng Shiqi nodded. As for how much he understood, it was unknown. The Ink Frost Ghostman's tone changed once more. But you don't need to worry too much. Our pavilion has already arranged for 3 blood-robed assassins to help you. 3 blood-robed assassins? Leng Shiqi frowned. The difference between blood-robed assassins was enormous. The Spirit Vein Realm black-striped blood-robed assassins and the 9 Netherworld blood-robed assassins were both blood-robed assassins, but the difference between them was like heaven and earth. He just didn't know what cultivation base the Ink Frost Ghostman was talking about. Leng Shiqi couldn't ask this question directly, so he beat around the bush. Vice Pavilion Master, may I know who those people are? A meaningful smile flashed through the Ink Frost Phantom's eyes. He said, the 3 of them were personally selected by our pavilion. Their strength and abilities are all exceptional. Moreover, the 3 of them are more or less related to you. Hearing this, Leng Shiqi also felt a little confused. He had only been in the Blood Garment Pavilion for a short time, and the number of people he had some sort of relationship with could be counted on 2 hands. However, he couldn't think of anyone suitable to go with him to the imperial capital. For example, Meng Ming and Yushu were definitely going to start their own Blood Seed project. They naturally wouldn't be able to help him. As for Bing Shang, who had helped him refine the Scarlet Gold Earth Dragon Flame, although he had great potential, his cultivation base was still too low. He definitely wouldn't be suitable. Other than those people, who else had some sort of relationship with him? Leng Shiqi couldn't think of anyone for a moment. The Ink Frost Ghostman continued, but you also know that the Blood Seed project is extremely secretive, so those 3 can't directly go with you to the imperial capital. Don't worry, I've already arranged everything. They've already entered the imperial capital through various methods, and they'll contact you when the time is right. There's a secret code that only the 4 of you can understand. You must remember it well. The Ink Frost apparition released a stream of ghostly chi, and a stream of information suddenly appeared in Leng Shiqi's mind. He also knew the importance of the Blood Seed plan, and he said solemnly, Disciple understands. Also, pass this mustard seed bag to Delta Origi. The Ink Frost Phantom tossed over a gray-white mustard seed bag. Bone Demon is very happy to know that the Delta Origi has also entered the Discipline Commission's headquarters. This is a reward for that girl. Leng Shiqi nodded gently and said, Disciple will definitely do so. However, Disciple still has a question that I would like Vice Pavilion Master to answer. Go ahead. I haven't seen Master since I came back this time. I wonder where he is? Leng Shiqi asked. As one of the 9 Netherworld Blood Cloak assassins of the Blood Cloak Pavilion, Wuxiang had been running around all year round. It was normal that he wasn't there when Leng Shiqi returned to the Blood Cloak Pavilion. However, he came back as the leader of the Elite Association, and even entered the Dark Thunder Guard's headquarters. Wuxiang must have received this news. According to Wuxiang's temperament, he would definitely come back to show off. However, more than 10 days had passed, and Leng Shiqi was about to leave, but Wuxiang still hadn't shown up. This made him a little confused. Leng Shiqi wasn't worried about Wuxiang's safety. He firmly believed that in this world, no one could touch him unless it was a powerhouse of the Sky Origin stage who personally made a move. What he cared about was that Wu Xiang should at least give him some kind of reward when he came back. Originally, Ling Shiqi didn't think of this, but when he saw that Bone Demon had prepared a reward for Delta Origi, he felt a little uncomfortable. He didn't ask for any precious treasures, even a few fire attribute spirit techniques would be good enough. The Ink Frost ghostly man fell silent, as if he was hesitating about something. After a few breaths, he said, Wu Xiang is preparing to do something very important and crazy. He can't afford to be disturbed, so we didn't inform him of your whereabouts. Hearing this, Ling Shiqi's heart clenched. Although Wu Xiang was a little unreliable, he was still good to him. At the very least, he still had some feelings of master and disciple to Wu Xiang. Now that the Ink Frost Ghost Man, a powerhouse of the Sky Origin stage, said that Wu Xiang was doing something crazy, it must be something very dangerous. You don't have to worry, we spirit cultivators go against the heavens. If we don't go through the tribulations, how can we fight against the heavens? The Ink Frost Ghost Man's tone became unusually firm. You have such a cultivation at such a young age. You were able to refine the pure gold earth dragon flame. Didn't you use your life in exchange for it? If your master can get through this, the blood seed plan will have a higher chance of success. Ling Shiqi agreed with the Ink Frost Ghost Man's words, but when he heard the last sentence, his mind suddenly shook. He seemed to have guessed what Wu Xiang was doing. Wu Xiang was originally at the peak of the unity of heaven and man realm, and now he was preparing to break through to the Sky Origin stage. No wonder he didn't return. To Wu Xiang, there was nothing more important than breaking through. But Ling Shiqi was still a little worried. Although he was far from reaching that level, but thinking about how the Gu God sect leader Sang Hetong had done something that angered the heavens just to break through to the Sky Origin stage, one could imagine how difficult it would be. The Sky Origin stage was the highest stage that Ling Shiqi knew of. A Sky Origin stage martial artist was enough to support a top-tier martial school. There were very few Sky Origin stage martial artists. Of course, Ling Shiqi hoped that Wu Xiang could break through successfully. Right, speaking of Wu Xiang, as your master, he should reward you. The Ink Frost Ghost Man took out a mustard seed pouch. Since he's not here, the reward can't be lacking. We don't know what he will give you, so we can only give you some spirit stones. Ling Shiqi didn't refuse. He took the mustard seed pouch and looked inside. Whoa, a total of 2,000 spirit stones were neatly arranged inside. And these spirit stones were all mid-grade spirit stones. A mid-grade spirit stone was equivalent to over 100 normal spirit stones, which meant that Ling Shiqi suddenly had a huge sum of 200,000 spirit stones. Previously, he had squeezed Zhuge Puha, Wu Diao, and the others dry, but he had only obtained 60 to 70,000 spirit stones. It was clear that the Ink Frost Ghost Man was really generous. Just as he was about to thank him, the Ink Frost Ghost Man waved his hand and said, "Enough nonsense. Quickly establish a firm foothold in the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters. This disciple will do his best. Go." After leaving the Bloodkill Hall, Ling Shiqi didn't rush to the imperial capital. Instead, he made a detour to the Bloodcloak Hall. He didn't come here to accept a mission, but to gather information. The information he wanted was about the Southern Divine Peak's worldly manifestation. It wasn't easy for him to come to the Mukon County, so he naturally wanted to go to the Southern Divine Peak to find Ozu and ask for the follow-up to the 1,000 Transformations illusory world art. Unfortunately, according to the information, the Southern Divine Peak's worldly manifestation had appeared more than half a month ago. This meant that it would take at least 2 months for the next worldly manifestation to appear. Ling Shiqi didn't have that much time, so he could only put this matter on hold for now. However, he had gained a lot from this trip. Not only did he fuse with the wild demonic blood beast body, but he also refined the crimson gold earth dragon flame. It could be said that his strength had skyrocketed, so he should be satisfied. In the end, he bid farewell to Meng Ming and Bing Shang. He also paid a visit to the previous Grand Pavilion Master of the Donglin County branch, Ghost Art. Then, he set off for the imperial capital with 9 leave. Chapter 5:11. The imperial capital was located at the center of the Thunderblaze dynasty. The Thunderblaze dynasty had a total of 36 prefectures scattered in all directions, and the imperial capital was equivalent to the 37th prefecture. Because the imperial capital was too big, it was as big as half of the prefectures. In all 8 directions of the imperial capital, there was a military city that protected the imperial capital tightly. The imperial capital was also divided into 3 parts. The outermost part was called the outer city, and most of the people living here were ordinary people. It was not accurate to call them ordinary people. Although these people were not spirit cultivators, they were all rich and noble. It could be said that if you could settle down in the imperial capital, it would be the glory of several lifetimes. The outer city was extremely large, and with the speed of an ordinary person, it would take them a few months to walk around the imperial capital once. Further in was the inner city. This inner city was similar to the demon-suppressing city in the demonic miasma mountain range, and only spirit cultivators had the qualifications to enter. Every street here was a spirit cultivator street, and there were spirit cultivator shops everywhere. Most of them were opened by various sections. Of course, the sects that could open shops in the inner city were all under the command of the Thunderblaze dynasty. For example, no matter how strong the Mountain Sea sect was, it was impossible for them to open a spirit cultivator shop in the imperial capital. The inner city could be considered the place with the most spirit cultivators in the Thunderblaze dynasty. As far as the eye could see, there were experts of the 4 realms of heaven and earth everywhere. Especially spirit cultivators of the spirit pulse realm, they had almost become a common cultivator. It was also because of this that the imperial capital was afraid that some high-level spirit cultivators would cause trouble in the inner city, so they spent a huge price to set up a formation in the inner city. Furthermore, there were always patrols patrolling the area. Even the weakest soldiers were at the spirit pulse realm, and even the captain was at the spirit aperture realm. Occasionally, you would even see experts of the unity of heaven and man realm patrolling. As a result, there were not many who dared to cause trouble in the inner city. Other than the outer city and inner city, the imperial capital was at the center of the imperial capital. The imperial capital was the true core of the Thunderblaze dynasty, and it was impossible for outsiders to take a step into the imperial capital. Even people like Eunuch Gao and Lei Mayan had to go through a complicated inspection when they entered the imperial capital. No one could be careless. Therefore, only a few people knew about the situation inside the imperial capital. Outsiders could spend their entire lives without being able to see the slightest bit of information. On this day, Ling Shiqi and 9 leave came to the imperial capital together. Ling Shiqi couldn't help but sigh as he gazed at the imperial capital's towering city walls that stretched as far as the eye could see. The city walls were at least 30 meters thick and were covered with countless spirit arrays and restrictions. It was as if the imperial capital had been turned into a military fortress. As expected of the imperial capital. Just these walls alone are 100 times stronger than demons subduing city. Purple light flickered in 9 leaves' eyes. Clearly, he had seen some clues. Ling Shiqi also secretly glanced at 9 leave with supercilious eyes, but he couldn't see anything. He was a little envious of 9 leaves' eyes. They were even stronger than supercilious eyes. The inspection in the imperial city was very strict. Everyone who entered or left the city was strictly screened. Fortunately, Ling Shiqi had Eunuch Gao's token, so the 2 of them entered the outer city without a hitch. Upon entering the city, Ling Shiqi couldn't help but sigh, is this really a city? He didn't see anything else. All he saw was a large continent that was a few hundred meters wide. It went straight out of his field of vision and seemed to have no end. Ling Shiqi had already opened his eye aperture. His vision was extraordinary. He could easily see things 10 kilometers away. It was obvious how long this road was. He quickly opened the system map and found that this road led directly to the inner city. The distance between the 2 was at least 100 to 200 kilometers. Was this really a city? Ling Shiqi originally thought that he had seen a lot, but now it seemed that his vision was still a little narrow. Not only him, but even Nine Leave, a 7th-rank Great Yao, showed a surprised expression. Anyone who saw their expressions smiled knowingly. They knew that it must be their first time in the imperial capital. After that, the two of them didn't stay in the outer city for long. Because the Dark Thunder Guards and the Discipline Commission headquarters were in the inner city, they directly rushed to the inner city. With their speed, they could arrive very quickly. However, they were in the city after all. There were many inconveniences. The two of them walked for more than 2 days before entering the inner city. After entering the inner city, the biggest difference for Ling Shiqi was the spiritual energy. The spiritual energy here was very abundant. It was not inferior to the treasured land of a second-rate sect. Furthermore, everywhere he looked, there were spirit cultivators and colorful small formations. This was simply a holy land for spirit cultivator. Nine Leaves' eyes instantly looked left and right. She impatiently said, "Go to your Dark Thunder Guards. I'll go play by myself." Before she could finish speaking, she had already run off. Ling Shiqi rubbed the space between his brows. Hopefully, Nine Leave wouldn't cause any trouble. There were too many people in the imperial city who could deal with her. She shouldn't play around and lose her life. Ling Shiqi couldn't control Nine Leave anyway, so he was too lazy to worry. He looked at the spirit cultivator shops everywhere and smiled. He turned and walked into a shop that sold cultivation methods and spirit skills. Not only did he lack fire cultivation methods, he also lacked all kinds of 5th-level cultivation methods. With all his current cultivation methods, he could open about 270 spirit cavities. This sounded like a lot, but it was still far from opening all 360 spirit cavities in his body. Only cultivation methods of the 5th step or higher had a method to open spiritual cavities. What was even more troublesome was that the remaining spirit cavities were relatively unpopular. Ordinary 5th-level cultivation methods couldn't do it. This was similar to the problem he faced when he was in the late stage of the Spirit Pulse realm. What he needed the most were the more unpopular cultivation methods. Not long after, Ling Shiqi resentfully came out. There were indeed 5th-level cultivation methods in this shop. The prices were all in the tens of thousands of spirit stones, but the key was that they weren't selling them. Or rather, they weren't selling them to him. At the beginning, after Ling Shiqi spoke of his intentions, he was led to a private room. However, when the other party asked about Ling Shiqi's identity, he subconsciously wanted to hide his identity and said that he was a rogue cultivator. However, who would have thought that the other party would be so angry and immediately start to act perfunctorily? In the end, they used all kinds of reasons to invite Ling Shiqi out. This wasn't because they were snobbish. After all, there were many low-key big shots in the imperial capital. The people in the shop never dared to offend any customer. The reason why they did this was because 5th-level cultivation methods were too rare. These people didn't earn spirit stones by selling 5th-level cultivation methods, but through connections and favors. None of the people who could buy 5th-level cultivation methods lacked spirit stones. Since they could take out spirit stones, why not sell them to those with noble status? Therefore, all these high-level rare resources were always specially prepared for high officials and nobles. After understanding this point, Ling Shiqi decided to first go to the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters to get a proper identity. Chapter 5:12. Ling Shiqi turned in the inner city. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks. The street in front of him was very different. The other streets were bustling with people, but here, he could see the entire street at a glance. Not to mention shops, there wasn't even a living person on this street. There was no other reason other than the fact that there was a mansion that everyone was afraid of located here. That was, the Dark Thunder Guard. Ling Shiqi couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seems that no matter where the Dark Thunder Guard is, they are not that popular. He walked to the front of the Dark Thunder Guard's gate and found that it was not as luxurious as he had imagined. On the contrary, it looked like an ordinary family's mansion. Even the big flat on the door was very simple, and overall, it did not look intimidating at all. In front of the door stood two spirit cultivators dressed in the Dark Thunder Guard's clothes. Ling Shiqi looked at them and found that they were both at the late stage of the Spirit Pulse realm. The late stage of the Spirit Pulse realm was just guarding the door. Ling Shiqi did not want to waste time. After taking out Eunuch Gao's token, he was brought in by one of them. Entering the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Hall, it could be considered a different world. Not only was the area large, but the design was also unique, completely using all the available space. Looking around, the figures of the Dark Thunder Guard could be seen everywhere, but it didn't seem crowded or messy at all. Ling Shiqi also noticed that the clothes of these Dark Thunder Guards were not the same. They were roughly divided into two categories, one was black and the other was purple. Moreover, he found that the cultivation of the people who were purple was relatively higher. The Dark Thunder Guard beside him saw Ling Shiqi looking around and said cleverly, "Sir, you must be new to the headquarters. Do you need this subordinate to introduce you to the structure of the headquarters?" The person who could be led in by Eunuch Gao definitely had an extraordinary identity. In the future, he might be one of his superiors. It was not bad to take this opportunity to establish a relationship. Ling Shiqi naturally saw through the man's thoughts, but he still chuckled and said, "Then I'll have to trouble you." That person immediately said, "It's my duty." "Sir, you see, these black-clothed Hidden Thunder Guards should be called Hidden Thunder Guards. The Hidden Thunder Guards were responsible for investigating and collecting intelligence. Every one of them was an expert. As long as they wanted to investigate, there was almost nothing they couldn't find. And those in black and purple are the War Thunder Guards, who are mainly responsible for carrying out arrest and elimination tasks. They are extremely powerful and rarely have opponents in the same rank." Hearing this, Ling Shiqi understood that the Yin Thunder Guards were intelligence personnel, and the Zhan Thunder Guards were combat personnel. No wonder those people with black clothes and purple stripes had higher cultivation. At this moment, a Hidden Thunder Guard walked past them. This Hidden Thunder Guard had a cloak on his back. That person continued, "The one who just walked past is the Hidden Thunder Guard's envoy inspector. You have to be at least at the Spirit Aperture realm to take up this position. There are also inspectors on the War Thunder Guard side, but the cultivation requirements are higher. They must be at the late stage of the Spirit Aperture realm. Of course, this is only a theoretical standard. In fact, the Hidden Thunder Guard's envoy inspector was generally qualified to be a master of the gang's spirit realm. The Hidden Thunder Guard was a real power figure. He could command a whole guard and hold a lot of power in his hands. In other provinces and counties, even the great Hidden Thunder Guard had to be polite to him. "I see that you have an extraordinary temperament. I think you can take up the position of Hidden Thunder Guard." Ling Shiqi secretly estimated that with his current strength, it was not a problem for him to serve as the Hidden Thunder Guard. He asked, "What's above the Hidden Thunder Guard?" "Air." The man froze for a moment, and then quickly said, "Above that is the Eunuch Envoy. The weakest one is at the late stage of the gang's spirit realm. People at this level have a certain right to speak even in the imperial capital. Even the Hidden Thunder Guard of the Unity of Heaven and Men realm has to be afraid of him." Eunuch Envoy? Ling Shiqi suddenly thought of the Eunuch Gao's token of Eunuch Gao. At that time, Eunuch Gao also said something similar. Did Eunuch Gao want him to serve as the Eunuch Envoy directly? It was good to be in a high position, but he could foresee that there would be countless troubles waiting for him. This position was not easy to sit in. Above the Hidden Thunder Guard is the Deputy General Manager. There are only 36 Deputy General Managers in total, corresponding to 36 provinces and counties. They have great power and directly belong to the 4 General Managers. Generally speaking, the 4 General Managers have a lot of things to deal with. Many things are handled by the Deputy General Managers, so you can't offend them. As for the 4 General Managers and the Great Commander, I dare not say more. The man was cautious in his words and actions. He dared not say more about the 4 General Managers and the Great Commander. Ling Shiqi didn't care. He had a general understanding of the structure of the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guard. Soon they came to a courtyard with the words, Cold Nether Pavilion, written on the door. He knew that this must be the place where Eunuch Gao was. The man cupped his hands and said, Sir, this is as far as I can go. By the way, what's your name? Ling Shiqi nodded slightly and asked. The man's expression changed. Since he was asked for his name, it meant that he had shown his value. He quickly said, I'm Lin Min, right? Sorry to trouble you, Ling Shiqi said politely. I dare not. It's my honor to be able to lead the way for you, sir. Lin Min immediately bowed. Ling Shiqi's eyes flashed. He thought to himself that even a gatekeeper in the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guard had to be so cautious in his words and actions. If he wanted to gain a foothold here, he had to tread on thin ice and be careful everywhere. However, if he really did it step by step, he didn't know when he would be able to rise to the top. Therefore, this path wasn't suitable for him. After sending Lin Min away, Ling Shiqi finally met Eunuch Gao after a few twists and turns with the token. At this time, there was another person standing beside Eunuch Gao. This person had a pale face and no beard. He looked like a teenager. His eyes were sharp and his clothes were similar to Eunuch Gao's. He should be the same kind of person as Eunuch Gao. You go back first. I will consider this matter. Eunuch Gao said expressionlessly. The teenager saluted and left. From beginning to end, he didn't look at Ling Shiqi. Ling Shiqi then cupped his fist and said, Disciple greets master. Although he was now in the Dark Thunder Guard, in fact, he should be called by his position. However, Ling Shiqi didn't have any identity now, so he called him by the identity of master and disciple. Eunuch Gao's eyelids moved slightly, and he said straightforwardly, There are two major systems in the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guard, namely the Hidden Thunder Guard and the War Thunder Guard. You should know which system you want to enter. Ling Shiqi didn't hesitate and said, Disciple wants to become a War Thunder Guard. Compared with the Hidden Thunder Guard, the War Thunder Guard was more suitable for his style. The War Thunder Guard looked more dangerous, but relatively, there were more opportunities to make contributions. Eunuch Gao gave a look as if he had expected it. Ling Shiqi asked at this time, Master, since I have entered the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guard, what will happen to my identity as the Great Supervisor in the Western Wilderness Prefecture? This was also what he had always cared about. The Western Wilderness Prefecture was his team that he had fought hard for, and he had also placed many people from the blood-clothed pavilion. It would be a pity to give it up like this. Moreover, he had also arranged a backup plan in Zhulu State. Without the right of the Western Wilderness Prefecture, his future plans would be difficult. Eunuch Gao smiled and said, Your ambition is not small. You can have the identity of the Western Wilderness Prefecture, but you can only start from the position of the supervisor. If you abandon the Great Supervisor, you can directly become the supervisor. You make your own choice. Chapter 5:13. In some sense, there was still fairness in this world. If you wanted to be an imperial supervisor, you had to give up your foundation in Western Wilderness Prefecture. If you didn't want to give it up, you could only choose the inferior position of supervisor. According to Lin Min, the standard for an imperial supervisor was the late stage of Gang's spirit realm. With his current strength, he could barely fight with someone in the middle stage of Gang's spirit realm. As for those in the late stage, he couldn't afford to offend them. Therefore, he couldn't be an imperial supervisor for the time being. I choose supervisor. This is the imperial supervisor token. Master, please take it back. He held out the imperial supervisor token with both hands. Eunuch Gao's eyes flashed with appreciation. You're an ambitious man. I've seen a lot of people like you, but it's rare to see someone who can control his ambition. Besides, we never take back what we've given out. The Imperial Supervisor token is with you. When the time is right, you can take up the post yourself. Leng Shiqi thought to himself that Eunuch Gao's question was actually a test of his temperament. Thank you, master. He quickly put away the Imperial Supervisor token. As long as he had the Imperial Supervisor token, he could be promoted to an Imperial Supervisor at any time, which meant that Eunuch Gao had paved the way for him in advance. There were many masters in the late stage of Gang's spirit realm in the headquarters of Dark Thunder Guards, but the number of eunuchs was limited. Therefore, it was not enough to be promoted to eunuchs only if one had the ability, qualifications, and connections. Leng Shiqi had to sigh again. In fact, there was no fairness in the world. Come here. Eunuch Gao called, and a man walked quickly to him. Leng Shiqi glanced at him and found it was an acquaintance, Wu Diao. They hadn't seen each other for a while. Wu Diao had a mustache on his lips, which made him look older and more confident than before. After the elite meeting, Wu Diao came to the imperial capital with Eunuch Gao. It seemed that he had been doing well with Eunuch Gao. Eunuch Gao said briefly, "Take him to the post." Wu Diao bowed and said, "Yes, master." After coming out of Eunuch Gao, Wu Diao immediately changed his expression. He pulled Leng Shiqi to him and said with a shifty look, "Brother Xingji, why are you so late? You're also an envoy inspector, right? Do you know how much profit an envoy inspector can make?" Leng Shiqi secretly smiled. No wonder Wu Diao's face was ruddy. It turned out that he had gained a lot of benefits. Leng Shiqi cupped his hands and said, "I have many trivial matters to attend to. I have no choice but to do so. I will need Brother Wu's help in the future." "Ha ha ha, you flatter me." Wu Diao's smile deepened. Brother Xingji is the leader of the elite association. His future achievements are immeasurable. Moreover, this matter hasn't been publicized yet. Otherwise, Brother Xingji would definitely be the center of attention. Let's go, I'll take you through the procedures first. Along the way, Wu Diao enthusiastically introduced Leng Shiqi to the situation in Dark Thunder Manor. He familiarly led Leng Shiqi through the process. Soon, he received the inspector's token and clothes, as well as the necessary resources. Then they turned left and right and came to a courtyard with 29 written on the door. Wu Diao sighed and said, "Brother Xingji, this courtyard is the War Thunder Guard's 29 guards. Now, only here is a vacancy for an envoy inspector. It must be said that your luck is not very good this time. The 29 guards suffered heavy losses in the mission not long ago. Of the original dozen people, only 5 returned. Dark Thunder Manor has always been short of manpower. I'm afraid there will be no manpower for you recently. But Brother Xingji, you don't have to worry. If you need, you can come to the 12 guards at any time to find me. I will definitely be at your beck and call." A 29 guards that suffered heavy losses fell into the hands of Leng Shiqi. He was definitely not happy. And it seemed that the mission carried out by the War Thunder Guard was also very dangerous. There were not many people available in his hands. He couldn't be asked to fight alone, right? It was not impossible to ask Wu Diao for help, but then he would owe him a favor again. Brother Wu is generous. If I really encounter difficulties, I won't be polite. Leng Shiqi still responded. Wu Diao laughed and said, "Huh, Brother Xingji, you don't have to be polite. You go in and rest first. I'll come back in the evening to welcome Brother Xingji. Then it's better to be polite." "Okay, I'll come find you then. I'll take my leave first." After saying goodbye to Wu Diao, Leng Shiqi stepped into the 29 guards' courtyard. The courtyard was not small. There were dozens of houses neatly arranged and a martial arts practice field. At this time, there were 5 figures sitting in the martial arts practice field. Looking from afar, it was a bit bleak. Leng Shiqi did not hide his footsteps as he walked over. As soon as he got close, the smell of wine floated into his nose. The 5 people also quickly noticed the footsteps behind them, but only 2 of them turned their heads. One of them had a pale face and an ordinary appearance. He looked to be in his 30s or 40s. The other person was strong and had a fierce expression. A pair of bell-sized eyes looked a bit scary. When they saw Leng Shiqi wearing a purple cloak, they guessed his identity. The two of them bowed at the same time. Subordinate He Fei Chen greets Envoy Inspector. Subordinate Lu Zhao greets Envoy Inspector. He Fei Chen was the pale-faced man and Lu Zhao was the strong man. Both of them were at the late stage of the spirit aperture realm. No need to be so polite. I am Lu Xingji, the newly appointed Envoy Inspector of the 29 Guards. What is the situation here? Leng Shiqi's expression was cold and his tone was cold. Although Wu Diao said that the 29 Guards suffered a heavy blow and lacked manpower. But other than the original dozen or so Battle Thunder Guards, there should be some intelligence personnel and servants. No matter what, it shouldn't be so bleak, right? He Fei Chen and Lu Zhao did not answer. Instead, they glanced at the three people who still had their backs to them, especially the one with white hair. These three clearly knew that the new Envoy Inspector was coming, but they still turned a blind eye. This was already a crime of disrespect. But the white-haired man still did not turn around. Instead, he said with an old and sad voice, "The 29 Guards are about to scatter. If Lord Lu wants to show off his power, wait until after the reorganization." Gudu. The two people next to the old man picked up the wine jug and drank by themselves. They were too lazy to even say a word. Leng Shiqi frowned. If he only had two normal people under him, then what was the difference between him and a general without an army? Looking at the three people with their backs to him, his eyes flashed with hostility. Immediately, Leng Shiqi reached out with one hand. Spirit chi surged and hundreds of cold underworld silk intertwined with each other and attacked the hearts of the three people. Leng Shiqi's sudden attack shocked everyone. He Fei Chen and Lu Zhao quickly dodged and exclaimed at the same time, "Spirit Aperture Realm's 6th layer? Cold Underworld Scripture." Chapter 514. Leng Shiqi revealed his cultivation as soon as he made a move. When Lu Zhao saw that he was only at the 6th layer of the Spirit Aperture Realm, his expression became complicated. He Fei Chen recognized that Leng Shiqi was using the Cold Underworld Treasured technique. The Cold Underworld Treasured technique was created by eunuch Gao and was only passed down to his adopted sons. From this, it could be seen that Leng Shiqi's identity was not ordinary. The three people who were attacked by Leng Shiqi were also shocked, but their reactions were not slow. The two people who were drinking turned around and broke the wine jug. However, the wine did not spill out, but rather formed ripples that shattered a lot of the cold underworld silk. Leng Shiqi also saw that the two people's clothes were messy and sloppy, but they looked very similar, like a pair of twins. The old man formed a seal and a fierce flaming tiger appeared, tearing apart the remaining cold underworld silk. Leng Shiqi did not use his full power with the cold underworld thousand silk hands. He only wanted to test them. The twins were both at the 6th layer of the Spirit Aperture Realm, and the old man was not simple, he was actually at the peak of the Spirit Aperture Realm. And he was also a spirit mage at the peak of the Spirit Aperture Realm. He also found that these people were not weak, but a small team with such battle strength had lost half of its members. What kind of terrifying mission did they go on? The old man also discovered Leng Shiqi's cultivation. He did not hesitate to mock him, since when can someone at the middle stage of the Spirit Aperture Realm be an Envoy Inspector? It seems like the 29th Guard is really going to decline. Old Huang, he cultivates the Cold Underworld Treasured technique. He Fei Chen whispered to him. However, the mockery in Elder Huang's eyes became even stronger. So it's because of connections. People like you don't stay in the palace but insist on joining the Dark Thunder Guard. One look and I can tell that you are an ambitious person. He Fei Chen kept trying to signal Elder Huang with his eyes, but Elder Huang completely ignored him. Actually, Old Huang knew that he had offended the new Envoy Inspector, but he did not care because his heart was already dead. He just wanted to retire and end his life. Naturally, he had nothing to worry about. The twins looked at each other, cupped their hands at Leng Shiqi, and continued to drink. Lu Zhao also looked at Leng Shiqi with disdain. Obviously, he looked down on Ling Shiqi. This. He Fei Chen looked left and right. How could he make the new inspector step down in this situation? He was still young and talented. He didn't want to ruin his future. Just as he was about to smooth things over, Ling Shiqi said something that shocked everyone. A bunch of trash. His tone was very calm, as if he was narrating a very ordinary matter, but it was this tone that immediately made the few people's hearts burn with rage. The twin brothers coldly glared at him. Lu Zhao's expression was ferocious, He Fei Chen's expression sank, and even Elder Huang let out a disdainful sound. What? Did I say something wrong? Ling Shiqi raised his eyebrows. What qualifications do a few pieces of trash who only know how to complain about themselves have to stay in the Dark Thunder Guards? I never raise trash. Today, I will clean up the sect and reorganize the 29 guards. Before he finished speaking, his hands quickly formed seals. Waves of crimson cold air surged out. The cold air rose into the air and surrounded the surroundings, freezing the space. In the blink of an eye, the martial arts practice field turned into a crimson world of ice. This move immediately caused a few people to be shocked. This new envoy inspector was also a spirit caster. But so what if he was a spirit caster in the middle stage of the spirit aperture realm? It wasn't like they hadn't killed one before. What surprised them the most was the difference in Ling Shiqi's body. Killing intent. He was being serious. Ling Shiqi's hand gripped the air and a 5th-level spirit spear appeared in his hand. As his spirit energy revolved, golden scales appeared on the spear's body and traces of sharp metal energy seeped out. Soon after, the tip of the spear flicked. Everyone seemed to hear the sound of surging waves. The golden spear was like a tsunami as it pierced towards Elder Huang. This spear was a fusion of the continuous blue wave spear and the golden scale cross spear that Wu Diao had given him. It was the golden wave spear. Metal begets water. Ling Shiqi used a metal elemental technique to activate this technique. Its power was even stronger than normal 6th-level techniques. Facing this spear, Elder Huang was moved. In his eyes, what he saw was not just a spear, but an endless wave of spear. A crimson crystal shone on Elder Huang's forehead. A small formation appeared under his feet. Waves of flames rushed towards him, attempting to drown out the spear. However, he still underestimated Ling Shiqi's strength. The golden wave spear itself was extremely aggressive. In addition to Ling Shiqi's terrifying strength and powerful body, he ignored the sea of flames and went straight for Elder Huang's head. This time, Elder Huang truly felt the threat of death. He had experienced this feeling not long ago, but he never thought that he would experience it again so soon. 9 Palace Fire Formation. Elder Huang's spiritual power was pushed to the limit. His white hair fluttered wildly. 9 huge pillars of fire suddenly rose from his body. The pillars of fire melted a lot of the crimson ice crystals as soon as they appeared. Under Elder Huang's control, the pillars of fire kept changing their paths in a strange manner, forming a formation. Ling Shiqi was deep in the 9 Palace Fire Formation. He was not afraid. With a shake of his spear, spear shadows swept in all directions. Like a golden wave, they instantly shattered 4 pillars of fire. Elder Huang was shocked. This was the first time that his 9 Palace Fire Formation had been broken by someone so powerful. However, at this moment, the others finally made their move. One of the twins used a saber, while the other used a sword. The saber user suddenly swung his saber towards the ground. Strangely, a huge saber light broke out from the ground under Ling Shiqi's feet. The swordsman's sword moved the void. When he looked up, he saw that a sword-shaped shadow of 100 feet long had fallen from the sky. Heaven and earth, saber and sword dual mastery. Lu Zhao was much more simple and violent. He threw out a punch. It was as if there was a ferocious roar coming from his body. As for He Fei Chen, after hesitating for 2 breaths, he still chose to make a move. In his opinion, Ling Shiqi might be testing them. Even if he guessed wrong, since the others had already made their move, it would be unreasonable for him to not make a move. Moreover, Ling Shiqi's attitude was truly infuriating. He Fei Chen flicked his finger. Streaks of cyan energy shot towards Ling Shiqi like a meteor shower. Facing the combined attacks of multiple mid- and late-stage Spirit Aperture Realm experts, Ling Shiqi's battle intent became even more intense. He used his palm as a saber. His entire body was filled with a shocking amount of demonic energy. A sinister and terrifying pitch-black saber light slashed down, easily cutting through the saber light on the ground. He used his finger as a sword. A ferocious blood-colored sword light tore through the sky, tearing apart the sword-shaped shadow. He hurriedly turned around. Several ancient runes lit up on his right arm. He didn't use any other spiritual techniques. He simply threw out a punch and sent Lu Zhao flying. Finally, he moved his 10 fingers. 10 blood-colored lightning bolts as thick as an arm shot out, destroying all of He Fei Chen's finger energy. The entire martial arts stage suddenly fell into a deathly silence. Chapter 5:15. The training field of the 29 guards was still covered by a layer of crimson ice crystals. Ling Shiqi looked at the other 5 coldly with his hands behind his back. The 5 people fell into a temporary state of absent-mindedness. From Ling Shiqi's sudden attack until now, everything had happened in the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint. In just a few blinks of an eye, their impression of Ling Shiqi had undergone a complete change. With a cultivation at the 6th level of the Spirit Aperture Realm, he easily suppressed all 5 of them. He even used spirit arts, spear arts, blade arts, sword arts, fist arts, and finger arts, which were completely different. It must be known that a spirit cultivator's time was very precious, and their energy was even more limited. It was good enough for a spirit cultivator to master 1 or 2 techniques in his life. Who could master so many techniques at the same time? Was he even human? However, what frightened them the most was Ling Shiqi's attitude. That kind of indifference, as if everything was natural, as if he just casually attacked and didn't use his full strength at all. In fact, it was indeed so. If Ling Shiqi activated the wild evil demon blood beast body, used the demon arrival saber and blood shadow sword, these people would be seriously injured even if they didn't die. They looked at each other and saw the indescribable horror in each other's eyes. Was this person really at the 6th level of the Spirit Aperture Realm? Was he a Spirit Gang Realm Master in disguise? Ling Shiqi stood there and waited for a few breaths, but those people were still looking at each other. His killing intent rose in his heart, and a golden flame flashed in his palm. It was that trace of fire that instantly made Elder Huang, who cultivated a fire-type cultivation method, turn pale with fright. He immediately knelt on one knee and shouted, "Subordinate Huang Yuanli greets Lord Inspector." He cultivated the fire attribute technique for decades and was very sensitive to flames. Just now, he suddenly felt a terrible flame that made his soul tremble. If Ling Shiqi really attacked, he would definitely die without a burial place. Although his heart was dead, it didn't mean that he really wanted to die. In the face of life, he chose to surrender. Previously, there was Ling Shiqi's military might. Now, even the respected Elder Huang had knelt down. The others also knelt down one after another and said in unison, "Your humble subordinates, He Fei Chen, Lu Zhao, Lu Xia, and Lu Dong, pay respect to Lord Inspector." Ling Shiqi dispersed the crimson ice crystals, and sunlight once again bathed everyone, making them feel a little more at ease. "Get up, He Fei Chen, follow me." After saying that, he turned around and walked towards the largest room in the courtyard. It seemed to be a meeting place. He Fei Chen calmed himself down and rejoiced inwardly. He signaled the others with his eyes and followed Ling Shiqi. When their figures disappeared from the room, Elder Huang looked dejected. He sighed deeply and said, "Sigh, the younger generation will surpass us in time. This person will definitely not be an ordinary person in the future, but this kind of person will often attract trouble. Anyway, This old man is going to leave the Dark Thunder Guards, you guys take care of yourselves. Lu Zhao was defeated by Ling Shiqi. He rubbed his shoulder and said, hey, he sent me flying with one punch. I like it. Lu Xia and Lu Dong turned around and left, leaving only one sentence, go back and take care of it. Obviously, these two also thought that it was worthwhile to follow Ling Shiqi. Elder Huang shook his head slightly and left alone. His back seemed more depressed. In the room, Ling Shiqi sat on a chair, and He Fei Chen stood with his hands behind his back. Tell me, what's the matter with your mission? Ling Shiqi was also very curious about what mission they had carried out. Not only did so many people die, but also their willpower was depressed. Was the blow really so big? He Fei Chen smiled bitterly and replied, it's a long story. More than a month ago, the Dark Thunder Guards found that there was some unrest in Shantai Commandery. There appeared a force that was specially looking for trouble with the Imperial Court, called the Dark Thunder Alliance. According to the intelligence of the Dark Thunder Guards, there was only one master of Gang's spirit realm, and the others were nothing to be afraid of. Originally, the Dark Thunder Guards of Shantai Commandery could have solved it by themselves, but at that time, Shantai Commandery was too busy to spare any manpower, so we 29 guards were sent to Shantai Commandery to wipe out this force. The former inspector was at the middle stage of Gang's spirit realm, and with us, it should have been an easy task. But no one expected that after we negotiated with the Dark Thunder Guards of Shantai Commandery, they gave us false information, which led us to fall into a trap. They were well prepared and invited several masters of Gang's spirit realm. Finally, we suffered a heavy loss. The 5 of us risked our lives to escape, and I haven't recovered from my injury yet. After listening to He Fei Chen's words, Ling Shiqi was a little surprised. You mean the Dark Thunder Guards of Shantai Commandery betrayed us? The Dark Thunder Guards were originally a force that supervised others, but there was a traitor among them. It would be a joke if it was spread out. Alas. He Fei Chen's face was bitter. A senior inspector of Shantai Commandery was secretly bribed. After this, that person took a group of elites of the Dark Thunder Guards to join the Thunder Extermination Alliance. What annoys me is that this group of people know too much about Shantai Commandery and the style of the Dark Thunder Guards, so they haven't been found yet. The Thunder Extermination Alliance is arrogant, but they do have some ability. Ling Shiqi was secretly surprised, and at the same time, he somewhat understood Mr. Huang and the others. Being betrayed by one's own people and leading to the death of more than half of them was indeed a big blow. Of course, he couldn't say this out loud, so he changed the topic. What about the others of the 29 guards? Alas, we heard that the 29 guards were going to be reorganized, so Mr. Huang sent them away and wanted to have a few days of peace. Unexpectedly, you came again, Your Excellency. He Fei Chen was actually quite surprised. Ling Shiqi's eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't know if this was intentional or accidental by Eunuch Gao. No matter what he had to do next was to make the 29 guards work normally. In the future, you will take care of the 29 guards. You will call back the original people first, and then apply for some more Thunder Guards to come in. His words caused He Fei Chen's entire body to tremble. From now on, he would be the second in command of the 29 guards. But He Fei Chen still looked embarrassed. Your Excellency may not know, but the War Thunder Guards have always been in short supply. In a short time, I'm afraid. Before he spoke, Ling Shiqi directly threw a mustard seed bag. He subconsciously opened it and saw that it was densely packed with spirit stones and various resources. His saliva was about to flow out. Money can make ghosts turn millstones. These resources are up to you. At least add a few more people. Don't worry, Your Excellency, I can do it well at this time. After sending He Fei Chen away, Ling Shiqi turned over some documents on the table and found that these were the daily duties of the War Thunder Guards. They also recorded the tasks and personnel changes that the 29 guards had completed, and the basic information of each War Thunder Guard. He also read it carefully. Until the evening, Wu Diao came to find him. Chapter 5:16. At night, Ling Shiqi and Ling Shiqi toasted each other and became more familiar with each other. Ling Shiqi also learned some common knowledge about the imperial capital from Wu Diao so that he wouldn't accidentally touch on any taboos. However, Ling Shiqi didn't forget that he had cheated Wu Diao and almost lost his underwear. With Wu Diao's personality, how could he forget it completely? Now, Wu Diao was so enthusiastic not only because Ling Shiqi had outstanding potential. After all, there were many geniuses with potential, but how many of them could survive until the end? He had probably heard something from Eunuch Gao's words. Ling Shiqi took advantage of the atmosphere to ask him about cultivation methods. Brother Wu, I'm new here and not familiar with the imperial capital. May I ask where I can buy level 5 cultivation methods? Level 5 cultivation methods? Surprise flashed through Wu Diao's eyes. With Ling Shiqi's strength, did he still need level 5 cultivation methods? Moreover, Wu Diao had personally seen Zhuge Puha give several level 5 cultivation methods to Ling Shiqi in order to fight for 4th place in the elite meeting. In addition, Ling Shiqi had cheated Mu Qinglin and the others of their resources, so he probably had a lot of level 5 cultivation methods on him. Then why did he need cultivation methods? However, Wu Diao didn't ask too much. He thought for a moment and said, actually, the larger spirit cultivation shops in the inner city all have level 5 cultivation methods. However, those people won't sell them easily. Ling Shiqi nodded inwardly. He had encountered this situation when he first came to the inner city. However, with Brother Xingji's current status, you can buy as much as you want. Maybe those shops won't take a single cent. Wu Diao's lips curled into a proud smile. Oh. What do you mean? The Dark Thunder Guard's inspector had such a high status? Hee hee. Wu Diao laughed sinisterly. Brother Xingji, have you forgotten what we Dark Thunder Guards do? What those businessmen are most afraid of isn't the patrol guards, but us Dark Thunder Guards. If they dare to provoke us, we can just find an excuse to search the area and ban them for a period of time. That will be enough to make them suffer. Looking at Wu Diao's smug look, Ling Shiqi knew that he had done something similar before. Ling Shiqi had already thought of several ways to make money from this route alone. This envoy inspector position was really not bad. Since that was the case, Ling Shiqi planned to visit a few shops later. He had nearly 300,000 spirit stones on him, so it was not a problem for him to buy a few cultivation methods. Perhaps he would be able to gather all the spiritual cavities he needed to open. However, at this moment, Wu Diao said, Brother Xingji, I suggest that unless you have nowhere else to go, don't go to the shop to buy cultivation techniques. Why is that? Ling Shiqi was puzzled. Wu Diao drank a mouthful of wine. Brother Xingji, think about it. How good can a cultivation technique be if the shop is selling it? It's basically the most ordinary kind of cultivation technique. There's basically no research value in it. Originally, Wu Diao had thought that Ling Shiqi wanted to study those cultivation methods to comprehend them by analogy. Although Wu Diao's guess was wrong, he did remind Ling Shiqi. Seeing that Wu Diao had something to say, Ling Shiqi raised his wine cup and said with a smile, It seems that Brother Wu has a plan. Why don't you give me some advice? It's not really advice. Wu Diao waved his hand and said, Actually, there are 4 large shops in the inner city. Every 3 months, they will take turns to hold an auction. This can be said to be the highest standard auction in the Thunderflame dynasty. Not to mention top-quality rank 5 cultivation techniques, even rank 6 and 7 cultivation techniques will appear. The Celestial Treasure Firm's auction will be held in a few days. Brother Xingji, why don't you go and try your luck? Hearing the words, auction, Ling Shiqi did not think about the cultivation techniques first. Instead, he was somewhat conflicted about the auction. The word auction often appeared in the literature of his previous world. Usually, as long as one participated in an auction, there would be strange treasures. Others would not be able to see it, only the main character would be able to. There would definitely be some conflict or conspiracy. Moreover, it would inexplicably involve the main character. In the end, all the benefits would fall into the hands of the main character. Lin Shiqi had seen a lot of this kind of melodramatic plot. He did not think that just because he had the system, he was destined to be the one. This world was too big. There were many people who could obtain all kinds of miraculous opportunities. Therefore, when he heard about the auction, he felt like he was facing a scourge. Wu Diao saw that Lin Shiqi was in a daze and seemed to be hesitating. He shouted to wake Lin Shiqi up, "I say, brother Xingji, you're still hesitating? Do you know that you're in luck? A few days ago, I helped the celestial treasure firm with something. I was able to get you an invitation. You have to know that the auction invitations can fetch a sky-high price. Moreover, those who can participate in the auction are either rich or respectable. They all have extraordinary statuses. Brother Xingji, you're new to the imperial capital. It's good for you to get to know them." He earnestly persuaded. Lin Shiqi thought about it and agreed. This was indeed a good opportunity. He was only going to see if there were any suitable fifth-level cultivation techniques. He did not care about anything else. There should not be any accidents. He nodded in agreement. Wu Diao immediately smiled. In this way, Lin Shiqi could be considered to have owed him a considerable favor. After the two drank to their heart's content, Lin Shiqi was not in a hurry to go back. Instead, he used his spiritual energy to force out all the alcohol and turned to walk to the various spirit cultivation shops. The auction was a good choice, but it did not mean that he would give up on the cultivation techniques in the shops. He directly put on his envoy inspector uniform and swaggered into a rather large shop. It was already late at night, but there were still many people inside. It was clear that business was booming. As soon as he entered, a sharp-eyed manservant immediately ran over and bowed. "Sir, what are your orders?" Before Lin Shiqi could speak, a person who looked like a manager quickly walked over. He waved his hand and said, "I will receive this esteemed guest. Go and prepare a private room." "Sir, my surname is Zhong." "May I ask what your surname is?" "Lu." "So it's Sir Lu." "Sir, please follow me." Manager Zhong led Lin Shiqi into a private room. He was submissive the entire time. Lin Shiqi thought that these people were really afraid of the Dark Thunder Guards. It seemed that he might be able to gain something tonight. After the two sat down, Manager Zhong asked, "Sir Lu, what do you need?" "As long as the shop has something, it will be provided. The price will definitely be the lowest." Lin Shiqi only said 4 words, "Fifth-level cultivation techniques." "Sir Lu, please wait a moment." As he spoke, he took out a palm-sized mirror and wrote a few words on it with his finger. He then said, "Sir Lu, please have some tea." As the saying goes, one does not hit a smiling person. Lin Shiqi also took a symbolic sip. Before he put down the teacup, a manservant held a plate in front of him. There were 5 jade slips placed on it. These are the 5th-level cultivation techniques collected by the shop. "Sir Lu, please take a look." Chapter 5:17. So fast, Lin Shiqi thought to himself, and then checked the jade slips one by one. Not long after, he frowned and put down the jade slips. Steward Zhong smiled and asked, "What is Lord Lu's problem?" The jade slips only briefly described the characteristics of the cultivation method, but did not say which spiritual cavities can be opened. "This is slightly inappropriate," Lin Shiqi leaned back and said indifferently. Steward Zhong's smile froze, then he immediately smiled and said, "So that's how it is, this one was negligent." Saying this, he took out the mirror again and wrote a sentence. In less than 10 breaths of time, the servant came back with a new plate. "Lord Lu, please take a look again," Steward Zhong gestured with his hand. Lin Shiqi finally felt the benefits of his identity. This was a far cry from the treatment he received when he first bought a cultivation technique. He looked through the 5 cultivation methods again, and found that only 2 of them were useful to him, but the number of spiritual cavities that could be opened was only 7 or 8. Just as Wu Diao said, the cultivation methods that could be sold in the shop were very ordinary. But it was better than nothing. He picked up one of the jade slips and asked, "How many spiritual stones is this golden cauldron art?" Lord Lu is too polite about the price. This shop can give this cultivation method to Lord, just treat it as making friends. Steward Zhong had no intention of taking the money. Ling Shiqi instantly saw through Steward Zhong's thoughts. He was just unfamiliar with him, and wanted to use this as a pretext to get closer to him. For Ling Shiqi, this could be considered as saving some spiritual stones, but it would also be related to the shop. He hesitated for a moment, but still reached out to take it. From Wu Diao's words, he could see that this was not just his case. Wu Diao must have also gained a lot from these shops. Ling Shiqi actually did not want to get too involved with these shops, but in this environment, everyone else was doing the same, and only he was aloof. He would be ostracized by others. In any case, it could help him save a lot of spiritual stones, so why not? Steward Zhong's smile deepened when he saw Ling Shiqi's cultivation technique. He was about to say something when Ling Shiqi beat him to it. "I accept Steward Zhong's kind intentions and will remember them. I'll take my leave first." After saying that, he left the place without hesitation. Manager Zhong immediately sent people to inquire about the Ling Shiqi. After Ling Shiqi had tasted the benefits, he went out and specifically chose those large-scale shops. These kinds of shops were generally not closed. Using his identity as an envoy inspector, he really managed to obtain 4 Tier 5 cultivation techniques. Including the one on his body, there were a total of 5. Although there wasn't anything profound about these cultivation methods, they were superior in quantity. Adding them all together, they could help him open up quite a few new spiritual cavities. If he were to open them all, he would have a total of 310 spiritual cavities. If his luck was good, he would be able to buy 1 or 2 suitable cultivation methods from the auction, and he would be able to gather enough spiritual cavities. With a satisfied mood, Ling Shiqi returned to the courtyard of the 29 guards. However, before he entered the courtyard, he bumped into He Feichen, whose face was full of anxiety. "What's wrong? Why are you so flustered?" Ling Shiqi vaguely felt that trouble had come. Seeing Ling Shiqi return, He Feichen's expression changed. He pulled Ling Shiqi aside and whispered, "My lord, Wei Xiangming is here." Ling Shiqi had never heard of this person before, so he asked, "Who is Wei Xiangming?" "He is the envoy inspector of the 28 guards. His cultivation is at the middle stage of Gang Spirit Realm." He Feichen said in a deep voice, "The 28 guards is right next to us. We have a grudge against each other because of a mission. We have never been on good terms." Hearing this, Ling Shiqi knew that trouble had come, but he still didn't know what Wei Xiangming was here for. He asked He Feichen, "What's going on?" "My lord, didn't you ask me to apply for some manpower?" "Unexpectedly, I happened to meet Wei Xiangming there. After inquiring, I learned that Wei Xiangming wanted to transfer the 5 of us to the 28 guards when he heard that the 29 guards were going to be reorganized. My lord, you know that we don't see eye to eye with him. If we were really transferred to the 28 guards, we would definitely suffer a lot. Maybe we would even die while carrying out extremely dangerous missions. Of course, I didn't want to, so I explained my intention. Wei Xiangming also knew that my lord had come to take office. Therefore, it was impossible for the 29 guards to be reorganized, so he came directly without caring about his face and has been waiting for my lord to come back. I found an excuse to sneak out. I just wanted my lord to lie low for a while and not have a direct confrontation with Wei Xiangming." Ling Shiqi chuckled, "You mean to let me be a coward?" He Feichen immediately shook his head, "I don't dare to have such an idea, but Wei Xiangming, enough." Ling Shiqi cut him off, "Take me to see this Wei Xiangming." This. He Feichen hesitated, but when he saw Ling Shiqi's indifferent expression, he obediently shut his mouth. As a subordinate, he had already done what he should do. Even if he lost face in the end, he couldn't be blamed. Wei Xiangming was a very thin middle-aged man. He looked a little weak, but there were 2 terrifying scars on his face that gave people a very scary feeling. At this time, Wei Xiangming was sitting in Leng Shiqi's seat in a dignified manner. He was playing with the teacup in his hand, looking a little bored. Lord Wei, Lord Lu is new here. He might have been attracted by the prosperity of the imperial capital. I don't think he'll come back tonight, Huang Huang said politely. He had already planned to leave, but he was still a member of the 29 guards. Naturally, he didn't want to see anyone else fall into Wei Xiangming's hands. No rush, no rush. I have plenty of time. Even if I have to wait here for an entire night, it won't be a problem. Wei Xiangming chuckled without a trace of tyranny. However, those who were familiar with him knew that he was a ruthless person. The more indifferent he appeared, the stronger the anger in his heart. This envoy has just taken office, and an important guest has already come to visit. I'm sorry for being late. At this time, Leng Shiqi walked into the hall and said with a fake smile. Wei Xiangming glanced at Leng Shiqi and continued to play with the teacup in his hand. He said with disdain, since when can someone in the middle stage of the spirit aperture realm become an envoy inspector? The future of the Dark Lightning Guards is truly worrying. He Feichen interrupted. Lord Lu was personally appointed by Manager Gao. Could it be that Lord Wei has doubts about Manager Gao's decision? Don't use Manager Gao to pressure me. In the past few years, he has placed quite a few people in the Dark Lightning Guards. This has already caused the dissatisfaction of the other 3 great managers. This Lu Xingji's cultivation isn't qualified at all. Being an envoy inspector is breaking the rules of the Dark Lightning Guards. I dare say this even in front of Manager Gao. Wei Xiangming's tone was very unyielding. Leng Shiqi's eyes moved slightly. He guessed that Wei Xiangming didn't come looking for trouble on the spur of the moment. Instead, there was someone pushing him from the shadows. Chapter 518. As the envoy inspector, how could Wei Xiangming be a reckless person? If he came to the door in such a domineering manner, it would cause a lot of gossip. However, he still did so without fear of eunuch Gao, which meant that he was instructed by someone. The person who instigated it was very likely to be one of the other 3 chiefs. Leng Shiqi was also a little helpless. He had only been here for 1 day, but he was already involved in the open and secret struggle between the 4 directors. As expected, the headquarters of Dark Thunder Guards would not be so peaceful. You guys go out first. Leng Shiqi turned to He Feichen, Mr. Huang, and others and said. They were also very clear that they were not qualified to participate in the following matters, so they left together. But when they walked to the door, Leng Shiqi said again, Stay away. Stay away. He Feichen and others were all confused, but they still did as he said. In the hall, Leng Shiqi did not want to beat around the bush, so he simply said, What do you want to do? Just say it. Wei Xiangming finally put down his teacup and crossed his legs. With a bit of arrogance, he said, He Feichen must have secretly told you that the 29th Guard Squad will be merged into my 28th Guard Squad, including you. Oh, you want to take off my clothes as the envoy inspector? You are quite arrogant. Leng Shiqi waved his hand in front of his nose, as if he really smelled something stinky. Wei Xiangming's expression froze. He had expected that Leng Shiqi would be furious and threaten to find eunuch Gao and so on. But now Leng Shiqi's action was completely out of his expectation. He looked at Leng Shiqi again. He always felt that Leng Shiqi had an indescribable temperament, as if he was a little indifferent to everything, so he planned to test further. Naive. I'll be frank with you. If you had the cultivation of Gang's spirit realm, I wouldn't dare to bully you. You can only blame yourself for not living up to expectations. After all, this is a world where strength is respected. Wei Xiangming said with obvious disdain. Leng Shiqi should be angry now, right? However, what Wei Xiangming didn't expect was that Leng Shiqi calmly shook a finger. You're right about one thing. This is a world where strength is respected, but you're wrong about one thing. Really? What did I say wrong? Wei Xiangming smiled contemptuously. That is my strength. Ling Shiqi's voice was like a heavy hammer falling to the ground. At the same time, a red and black spirit sword appeared in his hand. With a shake of the blade, a dazzling blood-red sword light burst out. However, there was actually a shadow hidden within the sword radiance that was difficult to detect. Wei Xiangming did not expect Ling Shiqi to make a move. However, at this moment, he was secretly happy. Once Ling Shiqi made the first move, this matter would blow up and his mission would be completed. He snorted coldly and was still sitting in the chair. He took a step and the ground immediately cracked. Threads of golden light intertwined like tentacles and broke the sword radiance. In front of my soft metal spiritual gang, you'd better put away this sword technique. Wei Xiangming sneered, but he did not notice the shadow sword radiance hidden by Ling Shiqi. Just as he was speaking, the shadow, like a poisonous snake hidden in the dark, finally found an opportunity. It instantly turned into an afterimage and stabbed in front of Wei Xiangming. This move was Ling Shiqi's Crimson Demon Double Shadow Swords, had been modified and integrated into the Bloody Killing 7 swords. It was both explosive and sneaky. Wei Xiangming's expression changed. He hurriedly flew back and shouted. A golden ripple washed the space and shattered the shadow sword radiance. He thought it was despicable, but before he could say anything, hundreds of triple sword chi had already shot out from all directions. Each sword chi contained 3 different breaths. In an instant, the sword chi destroyed the hall, and there were even countless sword marks on the ground. A huge steel saber appeared in Wei Xiangming's hand. There were 5 golden rings on the back of the saber. It was also a 6th-level spiritual weapon. As a middle-stage gang spirit realm cultivator, he was forced to use his spiritual weapon by a middle-stage spirit aperture realm cultivator. This was simply an insult to him. The golden saber was held horizontally, and the horrible saber intent rose to the sky. Dazzling golden spiritual gang surged and destroyed the triple sword chi wherever it went. Wei Xiangming gently stroked the blade with his left hand. The blade suddenly trembled slightly, and 3 golden blade shadows appeared behind him. He said with a gloomy face, "Lu Xingji, you dare to sneak attack me. Today, I'll take you and send you to the punishment hall." Even Supervisor Gao won't be able to say anything. Their fight was not small, and it was soon discovered by He Feichen and the other 4. At this moment, they finally knew why Ling Shiqi asked them to go away. It turned out that he had already planned to do it. But the 5 people all frowned. Just now, Ling Shiqi asked them to go away in advance, which meant that it was very likely that Ling Shiqi made the first move. They had personally experienced the strength of Ling Shiqi. He was definitely comparable to a spirit cultivator who had just entered the gang spirit realm. But Wei Xiangming was at the middle stage of the gang spirit realm. Moreover, Wei Xiangming was a veteran envoy inspector. He enjoyed all kinds of high-level resources, and his fighting strength was very high among those of the same level. Therefore, they believed that Ling Shiqi was no match for Wei Xiangming. And this matter was no longer about who was strong or weak. If Ling Shiqi really made the first move, Wei Xiangming could accuse him of murdering his colleagues. They all sighed that Ling Shiqi was still too young and impulsive. In the battle, Ling Shiqi narrowed his eyes. He could feel the terrible power in the 3 golden saber shadows, but he was not afraid at all. Instead, boundless fighting spirit surged in his heart. A blood-colored mark in the shape of a magatama appeared on his forehead, and the ghost blood tattoo emerged. His cultivation and spiritual power soared all the way to the late stage of the spirit aperture realm, and his spiritual power was also pushed to the extreme by him. A colorful light flashed in his eyes, and in Wei Xiangming's eyes, Ling Shiqi instantly turned into 5 gods, as if he could take his life with just one look. 5 gods spirit assimilation skill. Ling Shiqi, who had condensed his spirit, even didn't know the limit of his spiritual power. The 5 gods spirit assimilation skill could make Wei Xiangming, an expert at the middle stage of the gang spirit realm, fall for it. But unfortunately, the gang spirit realm could steal a trace of the power of heaven and earth, and its resistance to illusion was very strong. He woke up in the blink of an eye. This amount of time was more than enough. Boom! The ground around Leng Shiqi was pressed down by an invisible spiritual pressure, and Leng Shiqi's skin turned into gray scales. A set of black armor covered his body, and there was even a strange long tail behind him. There were blood-colored incantations flashing all over his body, which looked very strange. However, Leng Shiqi didn't expose his other 2 arms. This was the wild demon blood beast body. Chapter 5:19. An aura that seemed to come from ancient demonic beasts spread out, intimidating all living things. Even He Fei Chen's group of 5 who were far away from the battle felt a chill run down their spines. What kind of aura is this? It actually gives me the urge to run away. He Fei Chen's face was filled with panic. Not only him, but the others also had the same thought. Only old Huang was the calmest. He said in a deep voice, "Not good, they are serious. Go and find someone." Everyone came to their senses. He Fei Chen said, "I'll go and ask the Imperial Eunuch Envoy." "Old Huang, I'll have to trouble you to go and see if Steward Gao is here. You guys go and find the Imperial Eunuch Envoy that you have a good relationship with. Let's go. Let's go." The 5 of them knew that with their strength, they couldn't do anything. They could only run out and ask someone to stop them as fast as they could. Leng Shiqi completed his transformation. Wei Xiangming had just broken free from the 5 gods assimilation technique. He didn't even have time to see Leng Shiqi's appearance before Leng Shiqi directly appeared in front of him. Leng Shiqi sent out a punch. Boundless and pure demonic energy absorbed all the surrounding spiritual energy. A huge black demonic lotus quietly bloomed. In the blink of an eye, the demonic lotus changed into a swastika character and fell down. The demonic energy, swastika character carried a powerful suppressive force, as if it could suppress heaven and earth. It was about to kill Wei Xiangming. Wei Xiangming's expression finally became serious. The golden light in his hand rotated. The 3 golden shadows behind him constantly trembled and let out an ear-piercing buzzing sound. Even the surrounding air trembled. Triple gold grand opening. 3 golden sword auras tore through the night sky. Violent spiritual highland wreaked havoc. The terrifying sword intent filled the air and cut the demonic energy, swastika, character into several pieces. However, the demonic energy, swastika, character didn't directly dissipate. Instead, it scattered into a cloud of demonic energy. There seemed to be a dragon flying in the sky inside. Immediately, a pair of huge demonic dragon claws tore through the demonic clouds and attacked Wei Xiangming. The power of this demonic dragon claw was mediocre. It was far inferior to the demonic chi swastika symbol, but a trace of surprise flashed across Wei Xiangming's eyes. Whether it was Leng Shiqi's Black Lotus demonic fist or his Sanjin Kaitai, they were both level 6 spiritual skills. After using this level of spiritual skill, the spiritual power in the body would enter a very short stagnation period. Everyone's foundation was different, so the length of this stagnation period was different. However, after Leng Shiqi used the Black Lotus Demon Fist, there was no hindrance, and then he used the Earth Fiend Demon Dragon Claw. Wei Xiangming didn't think that he could achieve such a smooth and natural connection between different spiritual techniques. Not only him, even those gang spirit realm masters he was familiar with couldn't do it. For Lu Xingji to be chosen by Manager Gao, he must be quite capable. As the demonic dragon claw descended, Wei Xiangming only needed to lightly wave his saber to disperse it. However, at this moment, a long spear pierced straight towards him. It was a long spear covered with golden scales, but there was a sense of turbulence in the spear. The shadows of the spear were like endless waves. Wei Xiangming could no longer keep a straight face. Judging from his strength, this spear technique was very brilliant, but it was still within the range that he could resist. What shocked him was Leng Shiqi's storm-like offensive. From the initial probing of the hidden sword, the tri-extinction sword Qi, the Black Lotus demonic fist, the Earth Fiend Demonic Shadow Claw, and now the Golden Wave Spear. This series of attacks had never stopped, completely disrupting Wei Xiangming's rhythm. At this point, if Wei Xiangming couldn't break the situation, he would always be suppressed by Leng Shiqi. He was at the middle stage of Gang's spirit realm, but he was suppressed by a spirit cultivator who was a whole realm lower than him. If this spread out, he would never have the face to see anyone in the Dark Thunder Guard. I just wanted to teach you a lesson, but now you can't blame me. It's your own fault that you got injured. Wei Xiangming said fiercely. His momentum suddenly became extremely irritable. His eyes flashed with golden light, and there was a faint sound of thunder and lightning. Crack! Wei Xiangming turned into a golden light and suddenly disappeared. So fast. Leng Shiqi was shocked. Even if he opened his supercilious eyes, he could barely catch a glimpse of Wei Xiangming's figure. At this time, it was not suitable to fight recklessly. He took back the golden billow spear, stepped on a deep pit with purple thunder and lightning under his feet, and directly appeared hundreds of feet away. Just as he left, the sharp saber aura broke out, leaving a huge saber mark on the ground. He also knows high-level body movement spiritual skills. Wei Xiangming appeared, and the move that he thought was foolproof was dodged. Looking at Leng Shiqi hundreds of feet away, he felt more and more difficult. Then let's see who's faster. Wei Xiangming turned into a golden lightning again, and Leng Shiqi also exerted the purple thunder steps to the limit, narrowly avoiding Wei Xiangming's attack every time. Although he was not hit, judging from the aftermath of the saber aura, even if he opened the wild evil demon blood beast body, he would be seriously injured. He couldn't afford it. How much spiritual power do you have? I'd like to see how long you can hold on. Wei Xiangming gradually became a little arrogant, and now he unconsciously had a killing intent in his heart. Leng Shiqi ignored him and continued to dodge. Every time he was about to be hit, he would use the body movement spiritual skill, Swaying Residual Wind, in the Nirvana Remnant Wind scroll. This was a body movement spiritual skill, which was like a residual wind and difficult to catch. He used the two body movement spiritual skills in succession without any disharmony. In the courtyard of the 29 guards, there were two figures moving around like lightning. Even the Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators couldn't see their figures clearly. The more time passed, the more anxious Wei Xiangming became. His cultivation was higher by a large realm, but he still couldn't take down Leng Shiqi. He only felt his face burning. But at this time, Leng Shiqi's figure suddenly stopped, and Wei Xiangming immediately laughed. Haha, you don't have enough spiritual power, right? Watch me take you. Wei Xiangming kept waving the saber in his hand, and the golden rings on it made a ding-ding-dang-dang sound. The sound was like maggots that attacked Leng Shiqi's mind, and at the same time, the golden saber aura continued to explode, illuminating the night sky. Leng Shiqi stood upright, and his arms propped up to the side. With a thought, a pale yellow brilliance rose around his body, forming a semicircular shield. Child's play. Wei Xiangming sensed that the shield was extremely weak. It seemed that Leng Shiqi didn't have much spiritual power left. In the blink of an eye, the earth-shattering saber aura had already arrived in front of the shield. But what made Wei Xiangming turn pale with fright was that when his saber aura was less than a foot away from the shield, it was all bounced back by a strange invisible force. The saber aura that was bounced back collided with the saber aura behind it, and the sound of metal clashing could be heard everywhere. This was the spiritual skill that Wu Diao gave to Leng Shiqi, the Earth Pulse. Chapter 520. The biggest feature of the Earth pulsation was its anti-gravity, which was an extremely rare ability that always had unexpected effects. In the small chaos cave of 5 elements, Wu Diao delayed the fall of the black sphere with the help of the Earth pulsation, which showed how extraordinary it was. But in Leng Shiqi's view, Wu Diao had only practiced the Earth pulsation to the small success realm at most, because he himself had reached the completion realm. The Earth pulsation at the completion realm didn't need such a long preparation time at all. Leng Shiqi could use it at will, and it was more convenient for him to use it. He sharply reduced the range of the earth pulsation, so that the anti-gravity could be exerted to the maximum. Even Wei Xiangming's blade, which was unique to Gang's spirit realm, could be bounced back. Wei Xiangming would never have thought that his saber would be destroyed by his own saber. He had never seen such a magical spiritual skill, but he was not too surprised, because Leng Shiqi had surprised him too much tonight. And there was an inexplicable panic in his heart. From the beginning of the fight, he had never been at a disadvantage, but his opponent was only at the middle stage of spirit aperture realm. In fact, unconsciously, Wei Xiangming had regarded Leng Shiqi as an opponent of the same level. What did this mean? The middle stage of spirit aperture realm had the battle strength comparable to the middle stage of Gang's spirit realm, which meant that Leng Shiqi's talent could only be described as monstrous. Such a person also had the support of eunuch Gao. As long as he didn't die prematurely, he was bound to become a figure at the level of the 4 directors in the future. At that time, where should Wei Xiangming go? He finally began to regret coming to Leng Shiqi. Thinking of this, Wei Xiangming didn't intend to fight anymore. Anyway, it was Leng Shiqi who made the first move. Grasping this point could be regarded as completing his task. Just as he was about to stop, Leng Shiqi didn't intend to stop. He saw that Wei Xiangming was a little absent-minded. His figure suddenly dissipated like a dream bubble, and then endless colorful petals fell over the whole courtyard. A look of infatuation appeared in Wei Xiangming's eyes, but he quickly regained his senses and said angrily, "It's an illusion again." Then, every petal shot out a strand of triseverance sword chi. Looking up, it was as if the sky had been dyed in 5 brilliant colors. Enough. You know that this level of sword chi can't hurt me. Stop. Don't waste it. Wei Xiangming was still trying to persuade Leng Shiqi when he suddenly felt a dangerous aura. He had been in the Dark Thunder Guards for decades, so he was extremely sensitive to danger. His expression turned serious. It turned out that a golden sun had appeared in the sky of the 3 unique sword chi. No, not just one round. 9. Leng Shiqi extended their colorful wings and stood in the night sky, each holding the sun in their hands and looking down at the world. Wei Xiangming's pupils suddenly contracted. He wasn't afraid of the body illusion technique, nor was he shocked by the ability to fly. Instead, it was the scarlet gold flames on the blazing sun that caused his soul to throb. Those flames could take his life. What made him even crazier was that he saw the undisguised killing intent in Leng Shiqi's eyes. Leng Shiqi seemed to really dare to kill him, and could really kill him. Leng Shiqi was using the glorious sun poisonous yang palm, but he had replaced the poisonous flames with the crimson gold earth dragon flame. This was the glorious sun dragon flame palm. The horror of the heavenly flame was not something that ordinary people could withstand. In addition, Wei Xiangming cultivated the gold attribute cultivation method, which was even more restrained by the flame. So, Wei Xiangming felt death approaching before he even made a move. Leng Shiqi didn't dare to be careless. He wouldn't give Wei Xiangming any chance. Under the suppression of the tri-extinction sword chi, the 9, Leng Shiqi, waved their arms and the 9 golden suns burst out with terrifying power. 9 suns trampling the heavens. Wei Xiangming was terrified by the golden earth dragon flame, but he was also someone who had experienced countless battles. He still raised his golden saber and spat out a mouthful of essence blood. Blood chi rose from the golden saber. As it rotated, it seemed to draw upon the power of heaven and earth. The entire courtyard shook. A saber light that contained all of Wei Xiangming's spirit energy and blood cut through the night sky, as if it wanted to cut down the 9 suns together. Boom boom boom. Violent explosions occurred in the sky. The saber light and flames flew everywhere. The deafening sound could be heard clearly from 10 kilometers away. Many people came out of their houses to look at Dark Thunder Manor, not knowing what was going on inside. Strangely enough, Dark Thunder Manor's experts should have noticed the commotion caused by the two's exchange, yet none of them had come to check on the situation. Even He Feichen and the others who went out to invite people were nowhere to be seen. When all the sound and light dissipated, the courtyard of number 29 guards had been full of potholes. All the houses were destroyed and turned into charcoal. There was still a trace of fire burning everything in its way, including Wei Xiangming. At this time, Wei Xiangming was no longer as arrogant as before. His whole body was covered with terrible burns. His skin and flesh were overturned and bleeding, but the blood evaporated as soon as it came out. However, he was at the middle stage of Gang Spirit realm, and Gang Spirit helped him resist a lot of power. He was only seriously injured after taking the Bright Sun Dragon Flame Palm. There was only disbelief in his eyes. He couldn't believe that he was defeated by Leng Shiqi. What was even more unbelievable was that Leng Shiqi was closing in on him step by step, and the killing intent on his body was almost condensed into a substance. He wants to kill me. Does he really dare to kill me? Wei Xiangming roared in his heart, but his throat had been burned, so he couldn't speak. He could only send a voice transmission at once. Lu Xing. Lord Lu, let's talk nicely. I was only following someone's orders. I never thought of taking your life. Leng Shiqi turned a deaf ear to him. He used his palm as a blade, and an invisible blade of the primordial spirit directly tore through Wei Xiangming's spiritual defense. It instantly destroyed his spiritual space, and the expression in his eyes became extremely lifeless. Leng Shiqi walked forward and pressed Wei Xiangming's head. He said to the air, "Have you seen enough?" Swish. Suddenly, a few figures appeared in the originally empty place. He Feichen and the other four stood respectfully at the back, and two people stood at the front. They were Eunuch Gao and an extremely old man with a long beard. This is the first time I've seen such strength in Spirit Aperture Realm. No wonder you're the leader of the elite society. Very good. The long-bearded old man's words were full of praise. Eunuch Gao's lips curled into a rare smile. This is one of the four managers, Manager Hai. Why haven't you come over to greet him? Now, Leng Shiqi finally understood. He Feichen and the others also understood. This was a trap set up by Eunuch Gao and Manager Hai. They wanted to see his true strength. Leng Shiqi tilted his head and smiled. Then, he did something that no one expected. With a ka sound, he twisted off Wei Xiangming's head. Wei Xiangming was wrong. He wasn't wrong in finding trouble with Leng Shiqi, nor was he wrong in underestimating Leng Shiqi. He was wrong in not expecting Leng Shiqi to have the intention to kill him when he made his move. He Feichen and the other four immediately revealed expressions of fear. They weren't afraid that Leng Shiqi had the ability to kill Wei Xiangming, but that he killed Wei Xiangming in front of Manager Hai. This was equivalent to slapping his face in front of Manager Hai. They also noticed that this Sir Lu was usually quite amiable and gave off a feeling that he was easy to get along with. But in reality, he was more daring than anyone else. He made a move as soon as he said so, and he was crazier than anyone else. Leng Shiqi carried Wei Xiangming's head and walked in front of Manager Hai. Subordinate Lu Xingji greets Manager Hai. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.